Clearly, the main character has touched the atom of the sun, but instead of being burned, he becomes a scorching sun god, turning into a second sun and receiving a blade of all attributes. The heat radiating from him turns everything he cuts into ash. Yet, on the very first day of his rebirth, his beautiful girlfriend decides to break up with him because she has now been accepted into a top university. In another position, it's evident that a mediocre guy like the main character doesn't deserve her. They clearly don't belong to the same world. She concocts her own reasons to make him realize the reality that she won't be holding on to him. So Hin-Lee feels that there's nothing wrong with this. The two of them are from different circumstances and are destined to part ways in the eyes of those munching popcorn, waiting for drama. The main character waves his hand agreeing to the breakup. Being so decisive leaves, so Hin-Lee momentarily stunned as she sees the main character turn and walk away without hesitation. Feeling unimportant, she calls out to him, and upon hearing this, he glances at her. Is there anything else? So Hin-Lee pretends to be calm and coldly states that no matter what the main character does, she won't reconcile. The main character, with an expressionless face, looks at her for a few seconds before saying, "Stop dreaming, spider." This statement immediately breaks down, so Hin-Lee's defenses, turning her face red with embarrassment. The main character hears the murmurs of the crowd and just wants to laugh. So Hin-Lee is completely unaware of what will happen in the future. By that time, both money and academic achievements will be useless, because in a year, the whole world will enter a phase of spiritual energy, recovery, leading to significant changes where social norms will be replaced, marking the beginning of an era for cultivators. Strength will become the standard for measurement. It's important to know that in his previous life, the main character was just an ordinary person struggling to survive in an apocalypse, filled with countless mutated beasts, leading to the destruction of countless cities. Ultimately, the main character couldn't escape the pursuit and was buried beneath the jaws of a strange beast. In the coldness of death, his heart, unwilling and filled with vengeance, reached its peak, and it was at that moment he bound a mid-level system from the universe. This will cause the main character to be reborn a year before the spiritual energy recovery. This system has the ability to calculate the pinnacle of the universe, and based on his contact with spiritual beings, he writes out the current cultivation method that everyone has yet to realize will recover. The main character wants to use the spiritual energy solely for himself during this time. Meanwhile, a billboard is broadcasting news about fishermen discovering a giant abalone and suddenly mutated giant trees, among other things. The news does not comfort the people, nor does it deny the mutation of the abalone. Instead, it reminds everyone to be cautious. However, for the main character, the state's unintentional warning is particularly significant. This unintentional warning is a familiar tactic of the lower nation, which can make the citizens trust their country. At this moment, the main character is browsing news forums looking for some anomalies, and a piece of news catches his attention. Outside, the ultraviolet rays in Thanbak are much stronger than usual, but some people see this news and don't believe it. The Thanbak University is not far from here, and the weather is still cool and cloudy while the news reports otherwise. The temperature at Thanbak University has reached 74 degrees. Seeing the disbelief in the comments in the news, the main character chuckles. Now everyone thinks this news is just a tall tale, but only he knows that his first opportunity has arrived. 15 minutes later, in front of the Thanbak Medical University, the main character wipes the sweat from his face. Indeed, something is off with the temperature here. He sees sunlight shining down on the ground, forming dazzling spots, and even the guards can't stand it and flee. The main character endures the heat, and just as his fingers touch a small ray of light, the system's voice echoes beside him, detecting the fluctuation of all positive attributes and unlocking the positive attribute data. Instantly, the rays transform into binding threads around his body, and then his body erupts with blinding rays. The guards preparing to leave are completely blinded, and the main character has no idea what just happened. They simply cannot contain their astonishment. What they don't know is the main character's body is burning like a flame, and the pain radiates through his bones. At this moment, the system announces that the mutation is successful, and he has received the Golden Sun breathing technique, along with it. At the other entrance of Thanbak University, the main character's ex-girlfriend, So Hin-Lee, is slowly approaching. Her appearance has attracted quite a few seniors wanting to approach her, but she shows no interest at all. Just then, a ray of light bursts behind her, and the school's loudspeaker announces a warning for everyone not to approach the front gate. So Hin-Lee furrows her brows as she listens to the school's alert. Meanwhile, the main character's body is enveloped in light and ash, the golden sun. Breathing technique immediately enters his 6 organs, and 5 viscera expelling countless impurities from his body, turning them into ash. He also understands the golden sun breathing technique from the system. As long as he uses it proficiently, he can directly transform into the sun god. The system's announcement continues congratulating him on receiving 50 compilation points. Although he doesn't know what this is, the moment he uses the breathing technique, the scorching sky suddenly darkens. Even if it's just a moment, it attracts quite a bit of attention from the students. At that moment, the principal finally arrives at the north gate, starting to disperse the crowd of students. However, what catches people's attention is that behind the principal, there's a group of people in military uniforms, and the leader demands that the principal seal off the north gate. The commotion over there is also noticed by the main character, and he immediately decides to leave. Not long after he leaves, the mysterious military personnel arrive at the place he was before. She touches the ash on the ground and brings it to her nose, immediately deducing that it was created by someone mumbling to herself. Another person has come into contact with spiritual energy, huh? When the girl heard this, she murmured to herself, looking toward the distant road, as if she had spotted a familiar figure. But quickly she dismissed her own judgment, thinking that, with the main character's achievements, how could he possibly get into Tanbak University? An hour later, the main character returned home. Absorbing the sun's energy while practicing, he suddenly remembered the commotion he had caused earlier, and wondered if it made the news. He took out his phone to search and found only the Spiritual Energy Association, which piqued his curiosity. This association seemed somewhat familiar. It had apparently been established online a year ago, and back then, everyone thought it was just a joke. To his surprise, it was now so popular. The combination of spiritual energy recovery was something he had seen as a state secret, and he knew it was no simple matter. As he opened it, various levels appeared, starting from the first level of spiritual energy from the heavens and earth to the divine and demonic arts. Creating earthly weapons at level 2 was about borrowing the spiritual energy of heaven and earth to unlock divine bloodlines generating inner spiritual energy and other levels. Many people didn't believe this was real. However, the main character noticed a page about Gongchang Haguo. Although in his previous life he was just an ordinary person who had never heard of the Spiritual Energy Association, this Gongchang Haguo was managed very strictly, so he followed the description above to practice the Golden Yang breathing technique very quickly. The temperature within him fluctuated, but while practicing the Golden Yang breathing technique, his whole body soared into the air surrounded by blazing flames. The first step was to use the body to cultivate into energy, absorbing weapons with the spiritual energy of heaven and earth, then recreating the divine energy in an instant, a stream of spiritual energy condensed above the main character's head. At the moment of completing the condensation of the divine energy, he felt an unprecedented power enter his body. At this point, he had broken through to the first level of the demonic energy. At the same time, he recalled the system's previous compilation, which could forcibly impose any object. Thinking of this reminder, the main character looked at the neighboring country. Sure enough, the system appeared asking if he wanted to use compilation points to imbue this object with positive attributes. This confirmed his suspicion. Simply put, it was like enchanting an object to make it a transcendent item. If he agreed, this cup of water would possess the extraordinary power of positive attributes. So he decided to use the compilation points to enhance the blades, thinking they might become his specialized weapons. The ancestral sword had been chosen by the main character, but now it was very late. The experiment should wait until tomorrow. However, just as he fell into a deep sleep, a blood-red gaze appeared in the darkness. At that moment, on top of a skyscraper, a girl, dressed in specialized clothing, was holding a lollipop in her mouth. It seemed she was communicating with someone through a microphone. Just a second later, she jumped down and suddenly sensed the aura of a strange beast, realizing the target had entered a densely populated area 20 kilometers away after notifying someone else. She quickly headed toward the target. Even if someone looked up, they would only see a phantom in the darkness. She was like a spirit in the night while the main character was sound asleep, each deafening sound echoing in his ears. This made him uncomfortable, waking up to search for the source of the noise. After entering the demonic energy realm, his hearing had surpassed that of ordinary people, and this sound felt off to him. Just as he opened the door, a large figure rushed toward him. He immediately recognized it as a mutated beast. Even though it ambushed him unexpectedly to him, it moved as slowly as a snail. In just a second, his body radiated golden light and he charged forward at the mutated beast, not wanting to affect the ordinary people in the building. He caught the mutated rabbit and threw it hard outside, then continued to rush forward, the blinding light allowing him to unleash the power of the sun with a punch right into the middle of the mutated rabbit's belly. In just a second, it couldn't withstand the blow, and a large hole was instantly created in its belly. However, the mutated rabbit didn't die immediately. It still wanted to devour the main character's positive energy, but it was not something it could touch. In an instant, it was blown apart by the main character's power, the blinding light making those who were still awake feel as if it were daytime outside. But when they reached the window, they realized it was still dark. As for the rabbit that had devoured the positive energy and then exploded, every piece of its body emitted golden light. At this moment, the rabbit's eyes fell at the main character's feet. He coldly glanced at it before crushing it underfoot. However, it was clearly a dark attribute facing the positive attribute. How dare it devour it? It was truly foolish. If the main character were an ordinary person, everyone in that building would have become the rabbit's meal. This further strengthened the main character's determination to gather more techniques. Not long after he left, a figure appeared from above the girl in the specialized outfit from before, but now she was frozen in place. Because the rabbit she had chased unexpectedly turned into a pile of shattered pieces, although she didn't know how this happened. But the mutated rabbit left behind dark attributes that needed to be retrieved. Suddenly a stream of positive energy surged into her hand, even causing her to burn. And this positive energy was completely similar to the aura she had previously investigated at the north gate of the university. This could not be a coincidence. It must be known that before the recovery of spiritual energy, the normal attributes were metal, wood, water, fire, and earth. This positive attribute was even rarer than a panda. So she reported the situation here to her superiors. After hearing this, the other end of the line fell silent for a moment before relaying the order. The target was to find the practitioner with his terrifying talent, and no matter the cost, they had to recruit him into the organization. The girl naturally understood this line of thought, but her sense of responsibility immediately changed, handing all the tasks over to someone else. The girl stayed here, searching for the male lead, not feeling dissatisfied, just curious about what kind of person he would be given his masculine attributes. This was just after he had stayed up all night fighting monsters, leaving him a bit fatigued. After basking in the sun, he began to circulate his energy, each stream of golden light being absorbed into his body, continuously gathering at the top of his head. Gradually, the male lead felt the rhythm of a breakthrough. Each time he broke through, he needed to mobilize his divine energy. When he sensed the opportunity had arrived, he immediately used all his strength to perform the golden yang breathing technique. Streams of golden light surrounded his divine energy. The male lead wielded his divine axe, striking powerfully forward. After a loud explosion, he broke through to the second level of the demon realm, revealing the blood vessels on his body. The golden light emitted from him, and he understood why the breakthrough was so rapid. It was because he hadn't fully utilized his potential during the first level breakthrough. To advance further, he could only take a practical path. To avoid causing a bigger commotion, the male lead went behind the mountain, consuming his golden energy to infuse it into his blade. In an instant, a burst of golden light erupted, and the blade was infused with a golden glow. It seemed to be enveloped by mysterious power, and with the notification of successful infusion, the male lead couldn't wait any longer. He swung his blade, instantly vaporizing a significant amount of water with the heat. Seeing such a huge disturbance, he felt a bit embarrassed and quickly chose to leave. Not long after, a plume of smoke appeared where he had just been, and the girl rushed over angrily, buying a cup of bubble tea. She sensed the male lead's aura, but couldn't find him anywhere. At that moment, she froze, shocked by the destruction he had caused. But what troubled her more was how to restore this area behind the mountain. Suddenly, the girl's expression changed her face, showing disbelief. She could clearly sense the aura left by the male lead, which was obviously at the second level of the demon realm. Just last night, he had only been at the first level, but her shock wasn't over yet. There was also the aura of a spirit soldier. She had to know that there were only 2 or 3 people in the entire association. But even though it was incredibly rare, the association still completely mastered the technique of forging spirit soldiers. The girl was very curious about how the male lead knew the technique. Meanwhile, he was pondering whether weapons could combine different attributes. After all, the system could compile any technique. Suddenly, a piece of news caught the male lead's attention. Mainly, he had forgotten to erase the traces he left behind, which had been seen by others. They were also among the first cultivators, and their goal in searching for him was to protect him. Additionally, they shared the location of a new spirit energy recovery point. This attracted the male lead's attention. After receiving the information, he learned that this location was a lava cave, as it had similar attributes to his own. Therefore, he agreed to join the team. The next day, a small team arrived at the gathering point, a team consisting of 1 girl and 3 guys. However, the 3 men didn't know that this blonde girl was actually from the Spirit Energy Association. She had been pulling people in online to see who had talent to invite to join the association. Initially, she had spent no effort as the Spirit Energy Association was part of the state apparatus from high to low levels. At this moment, the male lead finally appeared. The blonde girl was a bit surprised to see him. The aura emanating from him was clearly at the second level of the demon realm, but she said nothing and led the male lead and his companions into the cave. After chatting for a bit, they quickly reached their destination. The male lead immediately ran forward at the call of everyone, one hand touching the scorching lava. A loud explosion erupted and the heat surged out. The system detected a celestial anomaly and wrote a new attack technique for the male lead, the fiery blade technique. After executing it, each slash resembled an eruption of blazing flames, and the blade was covered by a layer of fire. The dense flames carried bolts of lightning, and at the same time, the blade condensed the flames, bursting with immense energy. This blade perfectly complemented the male lead's long sword, and it also had a higher burning temperature. The male lead consumed energy points to fuse into the sword, which astonished everyone. At that moment, the sword was filled with flowing scorching lava, and they could feel the latent energy. The male lead was secretly delighted. After absorbing the internal flames, the surrounding spirit energy was no longer harsh, making it very suitable for everyone to cultivate. Unexpectedly, just a few minutes later, 3 people suddenly appeared behind them. They had also sensed the fluctuations of the spirit energy and came here. Noticing that all 3 were at the first level of the demon realm, the blonde girl didn't dare to provoke them, and wanted to invite them to absorb spirit energy together. The leader sneered, saying that besides the blonde girl, the other 3 were nothing. He told her to get lost, which made her grit her teeth. At that moment, the male lead appeared among them. Holding the molten blade, he coldly said, "What kind of skill is it to bully a weak girl?" After saying that, he plunged the blade into the ground, and a terrifying wave of flames erupted. The molten aura rushed toward the faces of the thugs. At that moment, when the male lead pointed the blade at them, the 3 no longer dared to act recklessly. They had every reason to believe that if the main character really swung at them, he would definitely be scorched to ashes by that fiery wave, causing them to flee without looking back. Meanwhile, the main character received adoring glances from everyone around. Feeling a bit shy, he chuckled softly and said he would go ahead, while the blonde girl, after sensing the incredible power of the main character, couldn't utter a word. She had never imagined that such a powerful master would appear. She had to report back quickly. The Spirit Association had received her report. They were also surprised that a high-level practitioner had emerged. Although they were excited, they didn't know how to recruit him. If they found out that the so-called high-level attributes belonged solely to the main character, what would they think? On his way home, he noticed news causing a stir that had already been seen and posted online by others. However, the main character didn't care much. He was focused on absorbing as many positive attributes as possible. He felt it was time for a breakthrough. So he went to the back of the mountain near his home. At that moment, the silver-haired girl, who had just restored the environment that the main character had previously destroyed, suddenly saw a small, dazzling sun appear, and countless spirit energies began to form, a phantom of a divine being witnessing such an extravagant phenomenon. The girl immediately confirmed that it was the main character again. She rushed toward the light, determined to meet the main character. Just moments ago, after he activated the golden yang breathing technique, all the positive energy in the sky had been absorbed by him. The aura of the main character had reached its peak, and the phantom of the divine being had fully materialized. At that moment, the silver-haired girl was utterly shocked by the sight of the spirit energy being mobilized by the divine being. It was as if he had overcome countless challenges, which was undoubtedly achieved through real combat and cultivation. Remembering how she had rushed to break through to the third level of the divine being, but ended up in the hospital for a week due to her mistakes, she realized this was a common flaw among many practitioners. Seeing the main character so composed made her think he was a much older master. At this moment, the divine being moved. After the third swing, the main character had reached the third level of the divine realm. When the silver-haired girl arrived at his location, she found no one there. Not caring, she continued to search for traces of him, so she called out loudly, "Senor, you must still be here." Indeed, the main character was hiding on a branch and had noticed that someone had been investigating him for days. He wanted to see who it was. The girl at this moment introduced herself as coming from the Cultivation Association. Her tone was very soft as she pleaded with the main character to join the association. The main character, no longer silent, asked why. She knew he wasn't interested in joining, so she tried to explain the benefits of joining the association and fighting against future enemies together, even offering her membership card to prove it was true. The main character was somewhat impressed by this girl who had once been the long-distance running champion of the country. But in his previous life, the association had inadvertently failed just because they faced an overwhelmingly strong enemy, leading to the near annihilation of humanity. Therefore, joining the association would be a constraint for the main character, now more beneficial than harmful. However, he could cooperate a bit with her, offering necessary help while ensuring she wouldn't disturb him during other times. After all, from her words, it was clear the association wasn't daring to risk getting too close to him, someone with such a rare attribute. He agreed to her request, and she would report mixed news about him. Sure enough, she did just that, reporting to the association that she had accidentally encountered him, but the association was too busy to manage his affairs because the strange portal had appeared. They were cold and ruthless, exploiting spirit energy to recover and pollute energy in the area, turning into mutated beasts that preyed on humans. Some disguised themselves as disaster phenomena, continuously killing people in the area. If they weren't eliminated immediately, their destructive attributes would continue to erode the human world. Meanwhile, the main character had returned home. The weather, which had been normal, suddenly turned stormy, with thunder and lightning, as if a cultivator was undergoing a tribulation. The authorities announced that everyone should stay indoors in the area where the main character was, which had been sealed off. However, the main character felt something was off. The aura of the lightning attribute was fluctuating as if it wasn't too clear. Perhaps it was another phenomenon of recovering spirit energy, so he decided to go to the places where the lightning struck. Sure enough, as he got closer, the system announced the pollution of the recovering spirit energy. At the same time, the Spirit Cultivation Association had investigated the explosive energy of the lightning on the mountain and predicted a danger level of S. No one from the association could approach the center. Even if it was the third level of the divine realm, it was still a death sentence. The association quickly ordered a mountain lockdown. Meanwhile, the main character looked at the continuous lightning striking toward the center of the lightning attribute, which was not pure enough at the edge. He had to go to the peak of the Jade Emperor Mountain. Now the spirit energy had just begun to recover. Although the mutated beasts were nothing to the main character facing the terror in the future, this little energy was far from enough to possess the positive attributes and the blade of destruction. In the future, he might truly become a divine weapon of the sun, and this lightning power was an opportunity to enhance his true form. This desire to become stronger pushed the main character to strive to endure. Thousands of lightning bolts are racing towards the center of the mountain right now. A powerful bolt suddenly strikes south and he swings his sword down, but it's simply impossible to withstand such overwhelming force. Even though he has the golden yang breathing technique to protect him, the lightning has engulfed him, still breaking through his yang attribute strength. This supreme lightning attribute can be said to be a divine punishment, seemingly increasing the pressure on him continuously. He wants to collapse. The protagonist looks up, pondering how he can subdue it. Watching the lightning continue to strike down once more, he immediately channels all his golden yang breathing technique. Instead of dodging, he slashes towards the lightning light. After that, he spits out a mouthful of red syrup. The lightning penetrates his body, causing him intense pain and numbness, but he has no intention of stopping. Struggling against the powerful pressure, he steps closer to the center. As the protagonist approaches, it seems to sense that he's challenging the endless lightning striking towards him with a white, tearful scene. This makes everyone thousands of miles away able to see it. At this moment, the system notification checks the powerful lightning attribute. But just a second later, the protagonist receives the divine lightning technique, making him no longer fear the heavenly lightning, while also allowing him to channel it into his body, transforming his flesh into divine form. The difference with the yang attribute is that whether the lightning attribute attacks or defends, it is supremely domineering. Moreover, the protagonist can feel it. His bones are being powerfully enhanced during the training without any pain at all. He also receives compilation points to use a new item to embed into the supreme lightning attribute. This judgment power is the nemesis of all evil entities, and the sword has a yang attribute. Adding one more will cause it to shatter. So he shifts his target to his right arm. Just like that, the lightning arm is born. After the protagonist receives the rare lightning attribute, the terrifying lightning on Mount Ngok's sun gradually disappears. Contrary to the association's expectations, it was supposed to disappear after 3 days. Therefore, they immediately ascended the mountain and quickly investigated the traces of the cultivator who had gone up during the incessant lightning strikes. This caused the army of the Spiritual Energy Association to be heavily shocked. Such an S-level anomaly was something they couldn't approach, but now someone could do it. Facing such a powerful being, if it were harmful to society, it would be immeasurable. Therefore, they must find the protagonist at all costs and attach the title of tyrant to him. But suddenly, the military Lieutenant Han recalled a yang attribute cultivator from before and turned to ask Totanwan how the investigation was going. Hearing this, she pretended to be calm, mixing true and false information about him, not mentioning the fact that she had come into contact with him. General Han nodded without saying anything further, turning to arrange for everyone to treat the anomaly on Mount Ngoksun as a natural phenomenon. Meanwhile, the protagonist has returned home. He begins to feel the lightning power in his right arm. Now, this lightning-dominated arm is perhaps the hardest part of his body. Moreover, the Judgment Lightning has also transformed into a small orb. This allows him to channel it easily. The system notification indicates that this high-level lightning can cause 300% damage with a critical hit against evil entities. The protagonist is a bit impatient and wants to try it right away. The forum he follows has just released news. He sees a news report appear before him about a chemical factory explosion with countless casualties, but the comments seem off. Those near the factory all sensed an ominous evil aura. The protagonist thinks for a moment and recalls that in his previous life, encountering evil entities like to appear suddenly in shadows and darkness, which could be any plant or animal. However, after mutation, possessing intelligence and transforming powers, their observation abilities and instant kill capabilities would increase to a state far more dangerous than the previously mutated rabbit. But they absolutely cannot allow them to continue evolving. Meanwhile, near the factory, the association's destroyers seem to be chasing something, and they name the target as Trukda. The team leader is serious just because Trukda likes to eat human flesh. Although the association is helping this squad, clearly still has to rely on their strength. Right now, all over the country, mutations are rampant, and the headquarters is basically very busy. Trukda is only considered a B-level danger by the headquarters. But because Totanwan is nearby, the headquarters has dispatched her to assist the protagonist. Over here, the giant mutated rat is emitting a nauseating aura. The protagonist can smell it even from 10 miles away, and after 2 squads merge into one, they encounter the mutated rat. Trukda has also been found. Immediately, they split up to rush towards the mutated rat from various angles. Of course, the giant rat also notices Totanwan's group and immediately tries to escape. However, they have surrounded this mutated rat. One person jumps high and slashes down at the mutated rat. It howls in pain and they see wings sprouting from its back. The rat emits sound waves, causing everyone to scatter. Then it gathers energy in its mouth and expels a stream of green toxic gas. This is the corrosive property of the dark attribute, which will cause anything it touches to rot. Without a high-level counteracting attribute, everyone dares not risk rushing into the toxic bones, and the mutated rat seizes this opportunity to spread its wings and attempt to flee, ultimately running towards a nearby factory. Totanwan prepares for any unforeseen circumstances. The concentration of spiritual energy started to fluctuate earlier. The mouse's reading was 49, but here in the workshop, it was 80. This means there's not just one strange creature sensing danger. Everyone is planning to leave. But it was too late. Who would have thought that the mutated mouse would team up with the mutated giant snake to hunt? All they could see was thick, poisonous fog. The workshop separated Totanwan and the others, attacking them one by one. Totanwan understood everything at that moment. She never expected the intelligence of the mutated mouse to be human-like, setting aside its status as a natural enemy to cooperate. Now, not only was the giant snake preparing to attack them, but they also had to resist the toxic gas from the fog, just as her spiritual energy was nearly depleted. Very quickly, her spiritual energy ran out, causing her to collapse. Just when she felt hopeless, the ceiling suddenly broke and blinding light illuminated the entire workshop. The giant snake saw the male lead and actively opened its mouth to attack him. Meanwhile, the mutated mouse took the chance to bite his right arm while he was dodging its massive mouth. However, the male lead didn't care. Terrifying electricity immediately surged from his right hand, and the giant mouse was swiftly eliminated. He then swung his sword towards the giant snake behind him, curious as to why this giant snake wasn't afraid of the sun. That strike completely enraged the giant snake, causing it to lose its mind and attack him frantically. At the moment, he dodged a scorching slash aimed at the giant snake. It split its head in two. Unexpectedly, this giant snake had the ability to recover. That slash couldn't destroy it. But that strike wasn't simple. It had a positive attribute. Just a second later, thunder exploded throughout the workshop. Instantly, the entire thunderstorm enveloped the giant snake's body. This was the power he used when he added controlled force to his sword, gathering lightning and channeling it into the giant snake's body. The dark energy was unusual. The mouse could easily be burned and weakened under the sun. But the giant snake was different. It had matured into a world-class disaster level. Even after it died, it didn't forget to bite him once. If the male lead didn't have the golden yang breathing technique, which could detoxify along with the lightning enhancement, anyone else would surely be dead after he dealt with the two mutated creatures. He discovered the girl who had been watching him before. The male lead smirked, knowing she was pretending to be unconscious. Totan felt she could no longer keep up the act, covering her face, her eyes flushed because she had never seen the male lead's face before. She thought he didn't want anyone to see his true identity looking at the girl who was thanking him. After receiving her gratitude, he turned and said goodbye. Totan saw the male lead wanting to leave and wanted to say something to him. However, he jumped up to the ceiling and left quickly. In fact, he left so fast. This was also because he wanted to interact with the dark attribute, to see if the system could collect and compile techniques. It seemed he had underestimated that uncomfortable cold feeling. The system had no reaction. Meanwhile, Totan was over here slapping the team leader awake. They had just woken up and saw two corpses beside them. They were immediately frightened. Totan told them that the master of the positive attribute she had been chasing had wiped everyone out. In their astonishment, they couldn't help but marvel at the male lead's powerful strength. She then retracted the traces of the dark attribute of the mutated creatures. But in the process, the team leader accidentally stepped on a piece of flesh from the giant snake. The sound of crackling electricity erupted beneath his feet, leaving them all dumbfounded. Didn't they say he was a practitioner of the positive attribute? Totan was also heavily shocked. After all, she didn't know the male lead had another high-level attribute. However, now it was just the male lead alone, and a thought that was hard to believe appeared in her mind. A practitioner with a high-level attribute. This was truly an unbelievable existence. She had encountered a real monster. Very quickly, the association received a notification that they had arrived at the scene. The main objective was to sweep up the remaining spiritual energy and analyze the traces left at the scene. Half an hour later, the investigation concluded that whether it was the mutated mouse or the giant snake, the chances of them being taken down were 99% by the same person. Although everyone had prepared themselves mentally, it was still hard not to be shocked. They had never heard of anyone having two high-level attributes. Totan realized she could no longer hide. She actively reported the situation to the association, but this time the association's attitude was different. They directly cancelled the surveillance of the male lead, stating that he had saved people and eliminated the anomaly. This proved he didn't harbor any resentment towards the association. Not wanting to diminish his impression, it was best not to do anything that would make him uncomfortable. Given the situation, Totan also reported the possibility of the male lead having a spiritual companion. This shocked the higher-ups of the association. Even if his talent was monstrous, he shouldn't possess a spiritual companion. Once the spiritual energy recovered, Totan believed that companion was of the positive attribute. This provided a possibility that the male lead's realm was that of a master who could create a spiritual companion based on himself. However, the realm of creating spiritual companions worldwide was reserved for the wealthiest individuals. They were the ones who had accumulated vast wealth, and young people, like the male lead, shouldn't have reached that level. Moreover, now the male lead had two high-level attributes. Could it be possible he had a third attribute? They are the ones who have accumulated a lot of wealth. A young man like the protagonist shouldn't reach that level. Moreover, now the protagonist has two high-level attributes. Could there be a third attribute appearing? You have to understand that no one in this world possesses all three attributes once verified. The whole world must rewrite the records. The main character has just returned home and started bathing, and the recovery of spiritual energy has not even been a year yet. The anomalies have been acting so intensely. Many practitioners who have embarked on the path of cultivation with great potential are now only entering the first level of the underworld. And the state is also aware of those who awaken the earliest, meaning both the government and the cultivators. The first phase is currently stabilizing, and the anomalies are still under state control. Among the earliest cultivators, there haven't been any major conflicts, although everyone is discussing how unsafe it is now. The government hasn't issued any corrections indicating that they want to issue a warning, but aren't fully prepared for the age of spiritual energy recovery. After all, the population is too large, and there are many anomalies. It can only maintain the pace of peace, but what the main character is worried about is the evolution speed of the anomalous beasts is too fast. Today, encountering dark beasts that invade and cause infection is a typical example. After contact, one can understand. They actually belong to the Shadow Attribute Division, which is the nemesis of cultivators. Even though they are not as powerful as the dark attributes the main character has encountered, one could destroy an entire nation. Terror spreads across the continent. But if he hadn't gone to that abandoned factory today, it's likely that Totan and the others would have died. Just a minor attribute has already made him feel cold and nauseous. The threat of the Shadow Attribute is indeed too great. Although the notification system temporarily cannot absorb it, this proves that once the system meets the conditions, he will be able to absorb it. The dark attributes suppress humans like this. If the main character can use it, this would be the best. It could even become the key to changing the current situation. He now possesses the golden yang breathing technique of the yang attribute and the thunderous refinement of the thunder attribute. And there's also the Crimson Fire Sword technique of the internal flame attribute. Basically, there are no cultivators who can rival him. However, the main character still feels it's far from enough. Just then his phone rang and it was his aunt calling. The purpose of the call was because her daughter, who is also the main character's cousin, needs to participate in a study activity and wants to arrange for her to stay with the main character for a few days. He has a bit of an impression of this academically gifted cousin. So he didn't refuse, but he didn't expect that it was just an excuse. He saw that the chat on her side was filled with practitioners and their target seems to be a town where several people have already lost their lives. Strange, but the mother of his cousin was completely unaware of this. The next day, his cousin arrived with a suitcase at the main character's place. Just as she arrived, she ran into him coming out, and he completely didn't recognize the person in front of him. "You're Lamai, why right?" Hearing this, she felt awkward and didn't know what to say next. Then both of them went home together and sat down to eat. The main character decided to ask first, "You came to visit the summer camp, right?" EY quickly confirmed, and then the atmosphere suddenly became awkward. Seeing this, he could only greet her a few words. "If you need anything, just call me." She politely replied, "Yes, thank you, cousin." A little later, the main character gently handed her the spare room key. I simultaneously reminded him that this is the spare key and he would go back to his room first. Her room is opposite. Seeing this, she took it and politely said, "Sorry for bothering you these days." YY quietly watched her cousin head back to his room. Meanwhile, she felt a bit relieved. It seems he is easygoing and doesn't meddle too much in her affairs. On the other hand, he was becoming increasingly vigilant, but the main character still tried to stay calm and not reveal anything. He pondered and observed the other person for a while. Earlier, when she was sitting on the sofa, he truly sensed a hint of strange spiritual energy. It flickered in and out. Could she have already become a practitioner? She said she was participating in a summer camp. Could it be because of that YY returned to her room and focused on texting her teammates through the screen? Her cousin is also good, not too chatty. When will we act? The beautiful woman aged 81 wanted to wait for the right opportunity. Recently, the area has been quite chaotic, but there are always practitioners ahead. Meanwhile, the person who lost NDT5 also agreed and recounted the situation. "I also heard last time at the underground river just like that. Two pairs met, and the result was that a powerful beast claimed to have slashed the sun with a sword, causing the other side to be so frightened they fled." The beautiful woman, age 81, half-believed joked, "Then it must be the highest quality practitioner." YY decided to agree and carefully wait for the right opportunity. Seeing this, both of them were determined to follow. After the conversation ended, she still felt restless. So she decided that since she just arrived, it's best not to cultivate first. If her cousin found out, it would be hard to explain. It's already been 3 days. The main character found it a bit challenging to adapt to living with another person in the house. Who would have thought that living with his cousin would bring quite a bit of trouble for his cultivation progress? His heavenly adjustment was always interrupted, so he decided to return to his own room to focus more on cultivating the golden yang breathing technique, which could be seen. While practicing the Southern Law, I can't help but worry if I'll be seen. Why didn't I notice the Kim Duong breathing technique standing out like this before? But that's not all. Ahead lies an even greater concern. The scariest part is that YY has finished cooking and politely invites him, saying, "Dinner is ready. There's beef stew with tomatoes and cucumber salad, plus corn rib soup." Hearing this, he maintains his polite demeanor, responding to the guest, 8 plates, just let her handle it, I can manage here. The protagonist quietly observes the other's overly polite and meticulous actions, feeling a bit forced. While eating, he silently watches how far YY can go with her performance. Still, the protagonist has no intention of giving up on his plan. Only by doing so can he uncover the secret. But just as they were eating suddenly, her phone unexpectedly rings and both of them freeze. He speaks up first. "What's wrong? Is someone looking for you?" Seeing this, the protagonist seizes the chance to slip away, leaving YY surprised. "Go ahead, I'll head to my room first." Observing her actions feels a bit strange. Yet she doesn't think much of it. YY quickly goes to her room to talk on the phone. A major change in the world will happen tomorrow. What time? 3 in the afternoon. Don't worry, I'll be there. While she chats with her teammates about the meeting at the Yang Fire Town, he hovers outside the window, eavesdropping on everything. It's a town well known in the suburbs. Just an hour's drive away, suddenly an energy surge from within catches the protagonist's attention. Finally, he has the answer right in front of him. It turns out his cousin is also a cultivator. In this era of recovering spiritual energy, the protagonist watches her practice the law with astonishment, relieved that his current strength can't detect it yet. "I'm just a high school student and I've reached this level. Plus, there's a sign of advancement." Not stopping there, he continues to observe and analyze YY's recent actions. Participating in the summer camp was a lie. The major change in the world is the real deal. She must have learned about this place from somewhere, which is why she made up an excuse to come here. The protagonist gently touches the wall. Every time a major change occurs, it's both an opportunity and a chance to acquire a type of magic to enhance his strength. This story is getting more and more interesting. He can't help but be curious about what attributes will appear in Young Fire Town this time. In an instant, the protagonist rushes across the water, excitement bubbling within him. "Whatever, if I hear it, it's mine." Meanwhile, while practicing her technique, feels a bit puzzled and looks around. "Strange, I don't see anyone at all." Yet she still feels a sense of confusion. Wasn't there someone watching just now? In Young Fire Town, the bustling atmosphere creates a lively scene. Suddenly a voice rings out in front of the gate. Why is that you is the voice of the person known as Love Scammer who tricked NDT5. Having chatted with her through the screen, he happily approaches and teases. How's it going at your cousin's house? Is he handsome? Hearing this, YY begins to ponder comparing their appearances. Well, they're both decent looking, but in terms of looks, they're just average. After all, they're not the kind of handsome guy she likes. After hearing this, she feels a bit disappointed and sighs. Standing beside her is a hot woman known as the beautiful 81-year-old woman. She continues, don't forget, back in the day, IEY tells herself she's just a normal part of the crowd. The others have been waiting there for a while, and the guy in the white shirt speaks up. All right, we have enough people. Let's get to the main topic. Noticing a missing member, she asks, wait, isn't that person coming this time? The cold guy replies, she's not coming. After everyone sets off, the beautiful 81-year-old woman gently reassures why she always acts mysterious like that. Meanwhile, the protagonist sits quietly observing them from a distance, hearing everything. He feels a bit hesitant, realizing that his cousin's team has enough strength to operate discreetly. He focuses on analyzing each person. The weakest is already at the second stage of the ghost realm, while the man from earlier has reached the third stage. He heard that there's someone strong in the team who often isn't present. Thinking this through, the protagonist gradually deduces the situation. Meanwhile, on the mountain of this famous town, the scenery grows increasingly gloomy. A familiar voice announces the situation, and suddenly a vine hangs down from the sky. Just like the beanstalk in the fairy tale, Jack and the Beanstalk. It carefully observes the surroundings while describing the vine's random appearance in this area. They aren't fixed, which differs from the information known to the cultivators, surpassing everyone's understanding. Clearly, it's a major change in the world, but it's unrelated to weather phenomena. This isn't a collapse or a restructuring of the surface. It's an alien object from the void. Without making a sound or shining like the sun, it silently moved and appeared briefly. By then, everyone had gathered at the agreed location, and the beautiful 81-year-old woman couldn't help but be astonished by the scene before her. Is that really it? She looked at the giant vines, unable to believe her eyes. It's hard to accept without seeing it firsthand. After being scammed online for NDT5, something strange suddenly happened here. Hey, maybe we shouldn't go any further. Hearing that YY looked a bit confused. What's wrong? It turned out that when she saw the terrifying scene before her, she was so scared that she trembled all over. A moment later, after being scammed online for NDT5, she began to explain the reason for seeing it. I feel something's off. My whole body is ice cold. Have you heard the rumors on the internal forum yet? Speaking of which, she started to mention the past. Actually, I have a friend in that team. They tried to approach the vines and they were all powerful practitioners. After being scammed online for NDT5, she narrated while imagining the terrible scene in her mind. But after they arrived, they all disappeared. Her voice trembled with fear. I have a feeling we might end up like that. After being scammed online for NDT5, she gathered all her courage to say, there's nowhere to hide after being scammed for NDT5. Trembling with fear at first, I thought I could easily accept the risks of a practitioner, either winning big or ending up in pieces. But when I saw this, I suddenly felt a primal fear. My instincts warned me that this time we were facing a high-level anomaly, a powerful mutation that was completely new and unpredictable. She felt desperate. I don't want to bury everything here yet. I want to retreat. I spoke up to reassure her. You're right. We all feel it. She explained in detail, in these wooden vines, there's a wild energy. I don't know how to describe it. It's the feeling of sinking into the flow of time where everything perishes and vitality drains away, which makes us feel deeply uneasy and uncomfortable, as if it wants to swallow our lives. I held the hand of the one who was scammed for NDT5 and continued. But she firmly asserted this is the path of martial arts practitioners from above. The male lead observed the situation always, from the gloomy energy, having seen so many phenomena of heaven and earth. Besides the dark mutations, the vines here are the most uncomfortable thing. He marveled. Deciding to cultivate here is truly brave. The male lead clearly noted that this type of plant symbolizes abundant vitality. But it brings an ominous feeling, not like it's alive. It resembles a dead thing disguised as a living organism that has lost all its spiritual energy. At this moment, YYY stood on a high rock and declared, everyone, we don't have time to think too much anymore, because the danger we will feel is right here. She carefully instructed everyone to stay within sight and not to wander too far. Everyone immediately obeyed YY, thinking that this way would be a bit safer. She began to focus on cultivating on a branch. The male lead was still standing around, not bad at all, being cautious and sensing the power to cultivate at a distance that was neither too close nor too far. He was indeed an outstanding student who calculated to maximize benefits. Not rushing, but also not backing down, her power was reaching its peak. He was a bit surprised. Is she about to break through? So fast, and she's already reached the threshold of 3 stars. This cousin of mine truly has extraordinary talent. The nickname 81 years old admired her 3 stars YE is amazing. The one who was scammed for NDT5 was also wide-eyed. Why? How did you get down there by the tree? The vines began to show signs of spreading and invading. The curly-haired young man immediately sensed something unusual and shouted, something's wrong, the vines are coming towards us. The nickname 81 years old exclaimed, what? How did they detect us from so far away? Instantly, we were all wrapped up by the vines, screaming in chaos. Help me! The one who was scammed for NDT5 panicked. Run! Run fast! If we don't run, we'll definitely die here. She realized that YY's breakthrough was causing too much commotion. We absolutely mustn't let the vines wrap around us. Once we're caught, the wild energy will tighten around our bodies immediately and will dissolve in an instant. But at this moment, YY was still focused on cultivating, unaware of the danger. The nickname 81 years old couldn't stop her. We still can't go. YY will get into trouble. The one who was scammed for NDT5 reacted fiercely. What do you want me to do? Use my spiritual energy to protect her. She decided to cultivate here while being indifferent to the risks. Is she trying to risk her life to become stronger? She spoke in a deep voice. Calm down a bit. The curly-haired young man suddenly interjected. Life and death are fated. If we don't leave now, we will all have to be buried with her. She's still too young. Don't let emotions control everyone. It's just a coincidence that we met on the road. Just as he finished speaking, he took a punch without dodging at all. The beautiful 81-year-old woman firmly said, You all get lost. I will never abandon my teammates. The male lead quietly grasped the situation. Perhaps my cousin still didn't know her plight. He thought, after all, he's just a student. The power of this vine is terrifying. I don't even know if my current strength can save her. But I'm afraid time is running out. In the end, the male lead decided, I promised her that I would take good care of her. A promise can't be taken back. Meanwhile, the 81-year-old beautiful woman was desperately smashing the vines, but in a moment of carelessness, she found herself entangled by the vines. After struggling for a while, the 81-year-old was still immobilized by the vines. Suddenly, a vine shot straight into the barrier where YY was cultivating. The male lead rushed forward with a blazing weapon in hand, while the 81-year-old, who had been deceived in an online romance, felt both anxious and helpless as the flames from his weapon surged. It struck the ground with incredible speed, creating a seismic shock that threw everything into chaos. After the display, the male lead slowly descended, leaving everyone in awe as the vines retreated and stopped their attack. Each vine was instantly incinerated, and his figure gradually emerged, looking cool with his curly hair. He realized this was also a cultivator. He silently confirmed that it was indeed a peak yang attribute. Only such a high-level attribute would dare to be so reckless and force the vines back. The curly-haired youth felt frustrated, wondering what gave him the right. I consider myself exceptionally gifted, having reached the 3rd level of the demon realm in a short time. Nationwide, there are only a handful of cultivators with such speed. He thought to himself not to mention that mysterious prodigy, Lin Yi's talent. Her talent is only on par with mine, but our male lead weapon in hand was ready to strike. The curly-haired youth wondered if there were others among the cultivators like him. Then what are we? Just specks of starlight meant to illuminate the bright moon. You crushed me. Not just me, but all of us cultivators. He was stunned, wondering what kind of existence this was. The news flash detecting the peak wood attribute, automatically recording it. The system announced successful recording of the power, including the ability to continuously absorb the life force around to quickly recover. He analyzed the cultivation method of the wood attribute. It was too powerful. As long as there was life force around, it was like a perpetual energy machine recharging itself. At this moment, the male lead was extracting spiritual energy, and the system announced successful extraction. The wild attribute could immediately stir the atmosphere of the wild realm to corrode life force. He slowly opened his eyes, his bright blue pupils shining in the darkness, pondering that it was no surprise. When this vine could only grow in this treacherous terrain, the male lead thrust his sword into the ground, his body radiating a hot aura. If it grew elsewhere, the life force within a 10-mile radius would likely be drained. He glanced back, realizing that this wild attribute was too domineering, forcibly seizing the life force of others. At that moment, the voice of the beautiful 81-year-old woman echoed from behind. Thank you, big brother, for saving her. She, heavily injured, staggered closer to the male lead and said, If it weren't for you, we would have definitely died. What can we do to repay you? But he acted like a cold, domineering CEO, waving his hand dismissively. No need. See you later. In his mind, the male lead calculated that he had followed their news to get here, and receiving the abundant life force and wild attribute was actually beneficial for him. The girl deceived in an online romance, and the long-haired guy looked at the male lead with concern, while the conflict from earlier should be kept in mind for future interactions. Then he took the sharp sword and flew away. Human nature is most exposed in danger. A disjointed team of 5 wouldn't be safe when a major crisis hit. The girl deceived in an online romance stared blankly at his receding figure and asked, Why is he leaving so fast? What should we do now? The long-haired man beside her teased, Are you regretting not saving him earlier? He calmly looked at YY sitting in the orb and discussed with the 2 girls that now that the threat was gone, Lin Yi had reached the 3rd level. Our best option now is to stay in this team. Just then, YY opened her eyes. The 3 of them exclaimed in unison, Yi, you're awake. The long-haired guy quickly reminded, Now we need to see if she has enough rationality to not let us fracture our bond. Instead of worrying about these things, it's better to think about that mysterious person. Ai looked around confused and asked, What happened? Then she suddenly noticed the tree trunk ablaze right next to her and quickly dodged to avoid the heat. The yang attribute was so strong that even from a distance I could feel its overwhelming heat. The clever long-haired man leaned in and suggested that he would recount what had just happened to her shifting to another time. YY walked home. In her mind, she kept replaying the story the long-haired guy told her. Could there really be someone that strong? She recalled his description of the male lead, saying he was like a monster. He detailed how the vines they struggled to cut were easily severed by him, forcing them to retreat. Do you see those two people staring at the giant vine hanging in the air? Now that vine has shrunk down to a tiny piece, too scared to come any closer to us. Yi opened the door, her mind still racing. This was the overwhelming power of that person. Even though they had left, the vine remained obedient, like a chicken. The chaotic screaming from earlier was completely gone. As soon as she stepped through the door, the male lead greeted her. He glanced at her, pretending to be worried, saying, "You don't look so good." Yi scratched her face hastily, coming up with an excuse that she was just a bit tired from school, and the male lead replied, "Well, you're trying hard. Go take a rest. Order some food for dinner," she replied. "Okay," Yi said as she entered her room and slammed the door shut exhausted, leaning against the door lost in thought. Breaking through took so much mental energy. Every time she controlled her spiritual power to activate the divine judgment, it required intense focus. It was more tiring than staying awake for a month. Instinctively, she flopped down on the bed, lazily scrolling through her phone. Luckily, she wasn't a normal person anymore. Staying awake for a few days wouldn't kill her. Trying my best, huh? But this training is the destiny of a cultivator. The world has started to change significantly. At that moment, Yi suddenly felt envious of the male lead. A normal life like his was something she could never have, even if it was surprising. A message popped up on her phone, startling her. Grandma Lamb reminded her that if there were any traces of that powerful being, she should inform her. Yi suddenly realized something unusual. This was the first time Grandma Lamb had spoken in this group. She quickly replied to Grandma Lamb and took the opportunity to ask a few questions. "All right, Grandma Lamb, I have a question. Do you all think the one who saved us could be the famous figure from the Dark River? Donglong, wasn't it? If it really was that great master, then why did they come to our rescue?" There were many rumors and discussions surrounding the male lead hot news about the high-level Yang attribute god reappearing. The sword strike, like a rainbow piercing the sun. Some have seen it in the realm of pollution. Donglong was that light accompanied by an explosion of flames. We were forced to leave the cave by the male lead's sword strike. In the lower kingdom, no cultivator of the same level would dare to confront him. Later, if you see him appear in the distorted land, everyone should be careful and keep your distance. By evening, the male lead left home on his bicycle. He sat on the bike, quietly calculating that now Yi would probably let her guard down around him. Going out, she wouldn't suspect that he was following her. The male lead pedaled through the dark night, hoping to find a way to connect with the wild attribute. The wild attribute was closer to plant life. He walked and pondered, but after all, this was an attribute with a sinister nature. Its essence was corrosive. If it were placed on me, it might react badly. Although he was eager to use the wild attribute, he was also worried about its side effects. Moreover, it could conflict with the thunder attribute he possessed. Finally, the male lead concluded that the best way was to find something similar to that strange vine that fell from the sky because it sensed the dense spiritual energy and chose to evolve. Just thinking about that, he smirked slightly, looking dangerous, mumbling, "I know where to go now." Then the male lead accelerated the bicycle, speeding into the deep forest. Soon after, he stopped at the city park, slowly strolling on the grassy carpet, muttering to himself, "I need to choose a type of plant, one that can resonate with my spiritual energy to the maximum, and also convey a sense of intimacy for good luck." With that, he closed his eyes and channeled his magical power, and the male lead began to float in the air. The stream of spiritual energy emanated from within him, and seeing it, he couldn't help but be surprised. Was this the plant's reaction to the spiritual energy? The spiritual energy was reacting more and more strongly with the leaves, but it still wasn't enough. He needed to be stronger. His hands were now gathering a massive amount of spiritual energy, but it still didn't satisfy him. He needed to be even stronger. Suddenly, his attention was caught by something in front of him. The male lead saw a small, glowing flower gently swaying on the ground. He looked at it and wondered, "What is that?" Without hesitation, the male lead reached out toward the flower, and its petals suddenly wrapped around his finger. After absorbing enough spiritual energy, the petals and the flower bloomed round and full. The male lead showed great interest in it, thinking to himself, "It has a lot of spirit." This wildflower was clearly a plant, but when it encountered spiritual energy, it acted like a greedy little dog, and after absorbing the energy, it even rubbed against his finger. He gently caressed the small flower in the quiet space. His warm voice sounded like a confession. "You in this entire forest respond to my spiritual energy the strongest. You're perfect for binding the wild attribute, so I'll choose you. Are you ready?" As soon as he finished speaking, the flower nodded. The male lead then unleashed his power, and a terrifying gust of wind surrounded the flower, sweeping away all the grass nearby. The spiritual energy asked the male lead if he wanted to bind the wild attribute to this object. He lifted the flower into his hand and replied firmly, "Yes." A powerful wave of spiritual energy erupted from the male lead, and he was a bit surprised when he looked at the creature before him. The flower was bound with the wild attribute from the male lead. Suddenly it swayed gently, its entire being radiating a blue light. The flower still moved as if it wanted to do something. But under the male lead's gaze, the flower slowly absorbed the surrounding spiritual energy. and in an instant, the surrounding forest became wilted, leaving only the flower standing alone. The male lead had to admit that the wild power was truly terrifying. It was like the hand of a demon. The flower continuously absorbed the spiritual energy. He couldn't help but marvel internally that in just 3 seconds, it had nearly drained the entire forest. The flower absorbed enough energy to gradually grow larger. The protagonist decisively pulled the flower out, feeling a bit anxious that this might attract the attention of the Spiritual Energy Association. Remembering his earlier walk in the forest, he noticed the camera observing the movements around him. He understood that this was the city center, and the Spiritual Energy Association would definitely pay attention to this place. As the energy recovered, the plants became dangerous. The protagonist was slightly startled to see that the flower, despite being uprooted, still thrived. Still greedy for the surrounding energy, he was surprised that the flower could survive and even continue to absorb energy. The protagonist smiled, gently teasing the flower, which had become more subdued compared to earlier when it absorbed energy freely. Even more so, although it was uprooted, its vitality did not diminish. It seemed the flower was enamored with handsome men leaning in to lightly touch the protagonist's hand. He gazed at it, captivated, wondering if this plant, now endowed with attributes, was beginning to evolve, as if it had unlocked the chains of evolution. Suddenly, a red light flickered near the tree trunk, signaling an abnormal value that exceeded the threshold, startling both the protagonist and the flower. He thought to himself that this was not good. Had the monitoring system been activated already? The protagonist held the flower tightly and dashed away. In the plant research department, all the screens lit up with red alerts, causing panic among those in the room. Restless in the forest, it was divided into two, one side still vibrant with life, while the other had withered due to the drained energy. The watch on the wrist of one person displayed warnings to those in protective gear. Observing the surroundings, one person looked at the display on their watch, shocked. It was terrifying. The north gate of Tantan University had only fluctuated around 80 before. Ha Jung-long was at 25, and those around agreed that if the energy concentration exceeded 10, the military would take over this park. Initially, the energy concentration hadn't even reached 10. A staff member with measuring equipment on the ground turned to express confusion. The humidity, surface moisture, and temperature were all normal. There were no issues with solar radiation. Yet the trees here seemed as if they had all simultaneously lost their vitality in just a few seconds. Another staff member stepped forward, wondering what kind of energy attribute caused this. I feel we need to go a bit further ahead. That's where the center is. The staff member approached the center of the incident, extremely curious about the energy that caused this. Just then, a man shouted loudly, warning everyone not to come any closer. This is the attribute of desolation. The young staff member beside him couldn't help but wonder. Seeing this, the bespectacled man explained, "Do you know about the vines hanging in the air?" The young staff members shuddered. Those vines were classified as A-level mutations. The bespectacled man replied, "That's right. It was classified as A-level because it was extremely dangerous. Many who ventured before had met gruesome ends. After all, it possessed the attribute of desolation, a powerful trait capable of siphoning the life force from surrounding creatures. At the same time, it monopolized everything for itself." The young staff member was so frightened he could hardly breathe. The earlier staff member expressed gratitude, saying, "If you hadn't stopped me earlier, I would have died the moment I stepped in." He calmly replied, "The plants that awaken the attribute of desolation around them can be considered a death zone. Anyone who steps inside will be devoured." People had previously reviewed documents about another plant with the attribute of desolation in Hakwok, known as the Ancient Forbidden Tree, located in Thungtan. The image of the ancient tree, along with the words of the bespectacled man, revealed that the decayed ancient tree had polluted the forest, turning it into a forbidden zone where any living creature that approached would be pierced. The bespectacled man was sweating, trying to think under the significant changes in the environment. The mutation of plants could not be taken lightly. Based on current knowledge, the attribute of desolation is the strongest attribute that plants can awaken. Besides the ancient tree and the vines, a new desolation had emerged. Suddenly a hand rested on his shoulder. The owner of that hand spoke, "I've heard about the situation." Surprised, he turned to see who was behind him. "Lieutenant Han!" The man in protective gear awaited orders. Han commanded, "All researchers present, quickly put on protective gear. We are entering the contaminated area." One by one, they donned their protective suits, their steps strong and determined as they moved forward. The group advanced the lights, illuminating their surroundings as reports echoed continuously. The aura of desolation began to diminish. Yet there were no notifications indicating the presence of desolation. Han turned slightly to speak to Totan Huin. "Let us investigate a bit," she replied. "Understood." With that, the two immediately knelt down, channeling their energy. Their energy slithered like snakes, searching for clues. Suddenly, both of them realized something, beads of sweat pouring down their bodies as Han felt tense and trembling. "The source has been excavated." The bespectacled man was taken aback, stunned, as he muttered, "How could this be possible?" Han's sharp gaze focused ahead, feeling a bit shaken. He thought that if someone could truly excavate the source from the forbidden zone of desolation, then that person's identity was worth considering carefully. Tan Huyen beside him suggested, "Captain Han." Han Li's sharp gaze looked ahead and he felt a bit scared. He thought if someone could truly uncover the origins from within the desolate forbidden area, then that person's identity would be worth considering carefully. Tan Huynh beside him suggested to Captain Han, "I know what you're thinking, but there's no trace of that powerful being at the scene." Han Li, while holding the report, replied based on the filtering and analysis of big data, "We found this person's record. This person's movements match the locations of 2 anomalies." Tan Huynh took the report, and as the information about the male lead appeared, Tan Huynh mumbled while reading the translation. Han Li bowed slightly to Tan Huynh and said, "I will transfer all his records to you. This person is very likely the one you encountered before. The rest leave it to your association." Tan Huynh was silent for a moment before agreeing. 2 hours later, at the male lead's house, he placed the flower pot on the table. The male lead smiled, gently playing with the petals of the small white flower that nuzzled against his hand. He chuckled to himself. "It's my first time planting flowers, and I can't even get a proper pot. This is the little house you chose. Don't cling to my hand anymore. Even if this guy has the wild attribute, he won't stop cultivating. He can be considered a valuable assistant that I've nurtured." The flower showed its spiritual energy around the male lead. He thought that the wild attribute was quite special and could be very helpful in battle, even having many unexpected effects, right? Moreover, it looks just right, not too conspicuous. If Lam Yi accidentally sees it, it would be hard for her to suspect anything. In battle, an ordinary appearance is the best disguise. The male lead's face was very calm. He looked at the flower. In actual combat, strength is just one part. What's more important is who has more tricks up their sleeve. Suddenly, the male lead's phone rang. The caller was Old Wang, the neighbor. The male lead picked up the phone and recognized the familiar voice. Old Wang's full name is Wang Liang, a neighbor and also a deskmate from elementary school. They could have continued their deskmate relationship in high school, but that kid slapped his back and said he wanted to join the army. The male lead answered the call, chuckling lightly. "Hey, you're back?" The voice on the other end cheerfully replied, "Yeah. Want to grab a drink at the usual place?" The male lead asked suddenly. Wang Liang, feeling shy, scratched his head and replied, "Yeah, I have an important secret to tell you. Don't be scared and faint when you hear it." After hanging up, Wang Liang placed the phone on the table. Opposite him were Tan Huynh and Ko Lam. "He seriously reported, Report Chief. I've done what you said. But I must suggest if he is not the person we are looking for, can we ensure his safety?" Ko Lam slammed her fingers on the table, her face stern, as she said, "Do your job well and don't do unnecessary things. If he's not the one, just treat him as a friend and give him some advice." The male lead and Wang Liang toasted each other during their reunion. He drank while watching Wang Liang gulp down his drink and sighed, noticing how much tougher this kid must have it in the army. This fool has grown up a lot. Wang Liang took a refreshing gulp and shared, "These past 3 years, I've had a lot of feelings about life in the army." He sighed and asked about the male lead. He cheerfully recounted getting into college, so he was doing okay. Wang Liang just made a noise in response. He was on the other side of the table reminiscing about his past life. Due to the chaos, he never had the chance to see him again or hear any news. The male lead remembered the ruins and the bodies of soldiers, thinking that someone like him must have logged out. Somewhere in some battle would his fate change this time. Wang Liang seriously asked, "Buddy, I want to know, have you encountered anything strange lately? Like in zombie movies or monsters?" He suspected, but then denied it. It's true that in the army they must know about the news of spiritual energy recovery. But is he probing me? The male lead pretended not to understand. "What exactly are you trying to say?" Wang Liang rested his hand on his forehead. "If not, that's good. I'm here today to talk about something not to comfort you, but to remind you about the future, whether near or far. Degrees and valuable assets will all turn into worthless scraps. The world will be rearranged from scratch." He listened silently. The male lead speculated that this belonged to the military's confidential files. Ordinary soldiers are under orders to keep secrets. The binding order prohibits disclosure about the awakening of spiritual energy. So in reality, I'm being classified by the military as a suspect that needs monitoring. Wang Liang, being my childhood friend, was sent to probe me. Wang Liang reassured his friend, "Don't worry, as long as you don't disclose what happened today, you'll be fine." This made him feel grateful inside. Because I acted foolishly and didn't cooperate, he kindly reminded me to be careful with the changes, despite violating discipline. A notification sound rang on the phone. Wang Liang was urgently summoned to the target location within 10 minutes. He hurriedly complied, "Yes," and quickly left, only managing a brief goodbye to the male lead. The urgent mission left him no choice. "You should head back first. I can't see you off." On the contrary, he calmly inquired if it was related to the recovery of spiritual energy. "I'll go with you." Wung Lung unexpectedly turned to the protagonist, patting him on the shoulder, and said directly, "Take me with you this time. You must have something to discuss with me." The superior's directive caught Wung Lung off guard when he realized the reason for this meeting. He intended to ask, but was interrupted by the protagonist. "Don't worry, I'm not sure what your superior has informed you, but I know you won't harm me." The real reason he wanted to accompany them was he wanted to probe the truth behind the matter that the military had to handle, whether it was related to the changes in the world. There was already a spiritual energy association to deal with the anomalies. So what was the military responsible for now? The two of them arrived at the military's forbidden area number 19, and the protagonist quietly sensed the dense spiritual energy here. This concentration might have exceeded the pollution level. Wung Lung announced his name to confirm his identity, and the successful verification echoed as the two were allowed to enter amidst the tight guard of soldiers. Suddenly, a loud explosion occurred before them. A squad of over 20 soldiers was confronting a bizarre beast that was howling. In their hands were weapons or beams of green light tightly binding the beast, which was spewing out red light. The soldiers on the opposite side were thrown back by the impact. He was astonished. This was a coordinated attribute. Kolam was a military officer at the Ghost Guard level, responding, "That's right." The unusual fusion between the dark and fire attributes had made this dog particularly brutal, and several soldiers had already been seriously injured. She shouted, "Vung Lung!" He responded loudly and then listened to the reprimand. "Why did you bring unrelated people into the forbidden area without permission?" Vung Lung intended to explain, but was cut off. Kolam rushed over to join the fight. "Forget it, this is urgent, we just need you." "Come here and set up a defensive formation." Vung Lung complied immediately. Kolam assessed the protagonist through the corner of her eye. He was the translator and she didn't see anything special. The spiritual energy around him was only slightly active. Could it be that he wasn't the one? But now wasn't the time to think too much. She reminded him, "Since you're Vung Lung's friend, I won't say much. This place is a forbidden area. Once inside, life and death are your own responsibility. Everything seen must be kept secret." He understood and replied, "I got it." She drew her weapon and shouted, "Trung mat lingok." The two immediately attacked the bizarre beast from above, while Kolam fired a beam of bright yellow light, striking the beast and causing it to howl in pain. However, just moments later, a red light suddenly erupted around the beast, and its level of mutation became even more severe. It lunged its massive claws at Lingok, and everyone shouted, "Lingok, be careful!" Fortunately, the yellow light struck the beast in time, saving Lingok by a hair's breadth. Kolam, still holding her weapon, was smoking. "Don't let your guard down. Keep your distance from it. We have to deal with it before it fully evolves." The whole team immediately complied. The protagonist silently praised this team for their thorough training, mutual trust, discipline, and good coordination. No one could be missing. When combined, they could unleash a power far beyond each individual's capability. However, he widened his eyes as if realizing something. The protagonist shouted a warning, "Run! You guys are no match for it." But it was too late. The bizarre beast suddenly unleashed countless purple electric sparks that pierced through the team. Kolam ordered, "Raise your vigilance. The mutation level in the forbidden area is increasing. No one is allowed to retreat." The entire team responded in unison. The bizarre beast grew even more horns and countless fangs, its size increasing. A bright red light surged from its head, indicating that the evil hound had completely fused with the dark attribute and had fully mutated. The beast's red eyes glared down at Vung Lung, who trembled in fear. Kolam shouted his name. He revealed his eyes glinting with electric sparks filled with worry. Vung Lung narrowly avoided the beast's first attack. Kolam issued the command. "Everyone listen, Forbidden Area 01. The mutated evil hound has completely evolved to level C and has now upgraded to level B. The combat plan is updated." Meanwhile, the protagonist silently assessed the situation from behind. Then he saw Vung Lung being knocked back and he rushed over to catch him. "Are you okay?" Vung Lung looked battered, trembling all over, but still managed to hold on. "I'm fine. It's just that the spiritual energy and the collar are restraining it." After that, he was counterattacked. Vung Lung tried to comfort the protagonist. "You don't need to worry. All the soldiers in Forbidden Area number 19 are done." He just silently watched without saying anything, while Kolam raised her gun again. She used all her strength to signal everyone, "No matter what tactics or methods we use, even if it costs our lives, the team vows not to let the level B mutation leave the Forbidden Area." Suddenly, the main character rushed forward, passing by Lam as she questioned him. He had gathered a massive electric spark in his palm, ready to strike. His tone was challenging, filled with arrogance. Why did he charge at that strange beast so recklessly? Then the main character leaped at it, saying, "Let this thunder god train you." The beast was hit by his powerful attack and felt the pain. The force of that strike was so powerful that everyone had to cover their faces to brace themselves. Lingok's eyes widened in surprise. "I couldn't be mistaken, could I? This is a B-level anomaly that even Commander Kolam can't handle alone." Vung Lung stammered, "Commander, could it really be that my brother..." Kolam confirmed his thoughts. "We weren't mistaken." But her gaze was fixed on the person unleashing that power, asserting confidently, "He is definitely the tyrant." Namchin sighed when he saw the anomaly beast still alive, thinking, "Well, it looks like we have to do it this way." Then he signaled the two people behind Commander Lao Vung. "You two quickly step back." Kolam assessed the series of events so far. "We need everyone to form a formation ready to sacrifice to deal with this B-level anomaly." Could he really have achieved this all by himself? Her brows furrowed as she pondered, what kind of power is this? Over here, Namching was swinging his arm, preparing for an attack, quietly acknowledging that this was the ultimate lightning attribute. Even in the lightning kingdom, it was a presence at the pinnacle level, especially if he waited for the spiritual energy to fully recover. Kolam's face turned pale as she saw his movements. Just how terrifying would he evolve? A bolt of lightning suddenly struck from the sky. At that moment, Namchin turned around, moving against the light emitted from the lightning that had just struck the anomaly beast, leaving her utterly convinced. Truly deserving of the title Tyrant, Namchin's face became colder and more inscrutable. Trungmat hugged her chest, feeling chills run down her spine, her mind buzzing. Lingok also sighed. This attribute is something else. This lightning is 1,000 times scarier than the darkness attribute. I can handle being corroded by the sky, but I can't withstand being struck by lightning. After finishing his task, he slowly approached, speaking in his usual tone. Lao Vung, I'm done. Vung Lung cheerfully ran over, teasing, You scared me to death, kid. He also casually tapped Nam Ching on the head, surprised that his big brother was so capable. He laughed when he got hit. You're repaying kindness with malice, huh? I hit the dog and you hit me. Vung Lung scratched his head apologetically. Sorry, I actually knew you could be a pioneer. The military order has pulled you into this. Nam Chin brushed it off. What's this? We haven't seen each other in 3 years, and now you're acting all distant. I know you well enough. At that moment, Kolam stepped forward from behind her voice, full of goodwill, as she wanted to shake hands, thanking him for his help. He smiled back, extending his hand politely. It's nothing. Just consider it me saving my friend. Suddenly remembering, she introduced herself. I'm Kolam, in charge of guarding Forbidden Area 01. You've saved Forbidden Area 01, so I hope you can leave your contact information. I need to report accurately. Nam Chin generously accepted, no problem. Meanwhile, Vung Lung seemed amused by seeing the commander show respect to his childhood friend. What an experience that was. Kolam praised him. Your strength is much greater than many pioneers specially invited by the military. Therefore, I really want you to join the military of Hakwok, but as a mere commander guarding a forbidden area, I fear I'm not qualified. However, in her mind, she calculated something even more astonishing. His realm was also at the level of the third star of the demon realm, but he had surpassed the level of the divine creator. She hesitated. Commander, what do you mean? Do you think you're not worthy to invite me? But Kolam replied directly. That's right. I believe there's nothing to deny or be ashamed of. This time we are also following orders from our superiors to learn about you, and we absolutely do not intend to pull you into this anomaly event. I think they will personally come to invite you. Hearing this, Nam Chin smiled wryly. It's not that serious. In fact, I have great respect for you all. Not everyone has the courage to sacrifice themselves to protect others. I've never witnessed soldiers fighting with my own eyes before. What you just said made me feel something, but those words made her feel relieved. In a soft voice, she thanked Nam Chin for his suggestion. If there's any trouble in the future, just call me for help, just like what you all did for us ordinary people during peacetime. Of course, there's one prerequisite: don't interfere with my personal training. I also won't be restricted, she said straightforwardly as he turned toward the gate, indicating his desire to leave. It was getting late. I take my leave, Kolam agreed. Vung Lung and I still need to deal with the remnants of the mutated dog. Now let's get you back. Nam Chin walked away confidently, thinking to himself that he finally understood the role of the military. The army stationed in the dangerous area, rich in spiritual energy, was there both to allow soldiers to cultivate in a resource-rich environment, ensuring their combat effectiveness, and to create a boundary for warning. It separates ordinary people from the extraordinary. Lam remarked, Your friend Wang Liang can no longer be simply described with just 3 words. What happened today is just a tiny part of his power, she asserted. However, that alone is enough for us to realize we can't keep up with a cultivator who can quickly reach this level. This shows he possesses unprecedented perceptions. He has the aura, courage, and ability missing. Any one of these 3 would be unacceptable. Wang Liang offered to help his friend, the officer saying, If that's the case, shouldn't we raise the treatment a bit more? If you feel you're not suitable to recruit him, then let me, his childhood friend, handle it. He said a series of things without carefully observing her darkening expression. Seeing her overly emotional reaction, Lam pressed Wang Liang's head down. All right, kid, hurry up and follow me to clean up the scene. Despite having his head pressed down, he still tried to respond to the command. Inside the room, while the main character was cultivating, he recalled this moment, realizing he had revealed his identity. But he still hadn't shown any other power besides his lightning attribute. Moreover, judging by their reactions, this might not be a bad thing. The main character deduced that at least he now knew this lightning attribute was incredibly rare. In fact, it was unique and could counteract the dark attribute, which is something the army desperately craved. However, to win him over, they would not threaten or suppress him. Instead, they would allow him to have a voice, just like the fastest way to grow stronger and the most advanced information. Besides, I also understand the functions of the army and the Spiritual Energy Association. The difference between the two lies in the fact that the army is the dark sword in the shadows. The solid shield of the nation strives to ensure the current peaceful life of the people. The government uses the Forbidden Zone to protect ordinary people while also sending signals that spiritual energy is about to recover. Both paths advance together also, giving ordinary people more time so they are not. From the very beginning, they were attacked by strange beasts, causing their homes to be destroyed and forcing them to wander. He began his cultivation process as he sensed the spiritual energy around him. The main character was very pleased. Indeed, the Forbidden Zone was filled with spiritual energy. The process of harnessing wild power hadn't yet led him to a breakthrough. He was secretly delighted. Just being in the Forbidden Zone for a short while, he could feel the spiritual energy in his body overflowing. This was a sign that a breakthrough was imminent. On the streets, Lam Yi was walking back, lost in thought, wondering if her cousin had returned home yet. She hoped that if not, he could at least let her test her cooking skills to see if they had improved. Suddenly, a bright golden pillar in the distance caught her attention, overwhelming her as she realized this was the wave of energy from advancing to the ghostly realm. But Yi had a bad feeling. This terrifying aura was wrong. While she was thinking, that golden pillar suddenly shot up into the sky. Yi Yi had a bold guess. Could someone be about to break through and create a spiritual realm? The powerful golden spiritual energy condensed into the shape of a golden axe, shining in the sky. Everyone looked up in astonishment, and Yi Yi was even more horrified as it moved. Wait, this isn't the ghostly realm. This immense power is. Creating a spiritual realm, the fierce golden energy transformed again into a hand with the index finger pointing straight up into the sky. Yi Yi's eyes widened, and she broke into a sweat. Such a powerful cultivator was right next to her. Just then, an urgent sound rang out warning that the abnormal index had reached 99. The energy field fluctuated, located 5 kilometers southeast of Han City, and both Han Li and Tan Huin were stunned. What's going on? The entire team urgently entered the target area filled with disbelief. How could such a powerful abnormal phenomenon not have been detected before? This index was enough to destroy an entire city. In the dimly lit room, the group surrounding the table was stunned. A cultivator had just created a spiritual realm. In other words, this place was about to face a catastrophic disaster. The atmosphere was tense, like a drawn bow. Han Li immediately tightened his radio, speaking firmly, requesting the headquarters for support. Besides large-scale destructive weapons, all advanced equipment and resources were needed. As soon as the order was given, the door swung open, and a young officer rushed in breathlessly, reporting, "Lieutenant Han, the alert has been lifted. The anomaly has been eliminated. It was a cultivator leveling up." The room fell silent. Then the atmosphere erupted as if a weight had been lifted. The main character let out a sigh of relief, feeling relaxed. Now that he had reached the spiritual realm, he casually rubbed the back of his neck, surprised at how easily he had broken through. Aside from feeling lighter, there didn't seem to be much difference. A notification popped up on his phone. Wang Liang sent a message about the Hantan University. A large fire has appeared for the second time, its cause unknown, and it's unusually linked to the pollution in the mail sector. Quickly, two people are joking around, and in the end, he reminds them that his strength is immense. It's hard to control things when you're outside, so you have to be really careful. He agrees with Weng Lung, realizing that showing off your strength can easily lead to trouble. That's why he always hides his true power, keeping his fiery yang attributes and Taoist skills under wraps. The fire red is my trump card. Don't worry, I'll be careful. I still have a trump card left. Just then the door swung open and Yi Yi walked in carrying a takeout box, her voice cheerful. "I'm back. Have you eaten yet?" she asked, walking into the house and addressing Nam, who was casually sitting on the sofa. He replied, "Yeah, I'm good." "Just leave it there, I'll eat later," he said. Yi Yi frowned, slightly worried. She knew her cousin was good-natured but very lazy. Even though studying wasn't too important, she was busy with her own tasks as a practitioner. She flopped down on the bed, thinking about the sudden appearance of a master creating a spiritual realm which could lead to something big. She decided to protect him as a way to repay him for letting her stay. Meanwhile, Nam was still glued to the screen, continuing to follow the news. First it was the high temperature, and now it was a fire. Nam speculated through the recorded images that the flames had spread very quickly and violently, burning the trees and flower beds around the gym to ashes. Now it had turned to ash and was already cordoned off. The phone was replaying the footage of the large fire comments flooding the screen. The video was too short and abruptly stopped, looking even more serious than the situation at the North Gate before. It was uncertain what the positive attributes would be this time. In a moment of contemplation, Nam suddenly remembered the image of Kolam reaching out to him earlier. He wanted to go on a trip by himself, but still needed to contact her. The next day, many reporters gathered at the main entrance. The strict guards of Tantan University had closed the gates, and about 10 reporters crowded together continuously, asking questions related to the fire. Among the crowd, 2 people suddenly stepped forward, causing the surroundings to fall silent. One reporter asked, "Who are these people?" In the midst of the crowd, Nam and Kolam entered the school, surprising all the reporters present. One reporter loudly questioned why they were allowed in, while others were kept outside. The 2 stood observing the fire, which still hadn't been extinguished. Is this really the heavenly fire? Nam felt quite unfamiliar. Yeah, it's named by the government. There were no warning signs. The fire erupted suddenly and couldn't be extinguished. We can only wait for it to consume everything it wants in the valley. About 10 helicopters flew overhead but couldn't touch the fire. Kolam turned to the translator and said, "I'm going to the principal's office. Do you want to wait here or come with me?" Nam glanced over and waved his hand, signaling her to go ahead. "I'll be fine here. Just be careful and we'll meet up later." He slowly walked down closer to the fire area, where the burnt land was already cold. Is there really no trace of the heavenly fire's spiritual energy left? He lifted the barrier and stepped inside, touching the ground with 2 fingers to feel it. Naturally, he couldn't gather anything. Looks like I was thinking too simply. The translator suddenly heard someone calling him, causing him to pause. "Queen Lee," he called out, seeing a girl with brown hair and freckles beside her. "Is that really you?" "What are you doing here?" she asked, puzzled. "Is he the ex-boyfriend you mentioned, the one who only got into college?" The freckled girl curiously interjected, and Queen Lee silently nodded. "My friend knows you're here. Maybe there's still some lingering feelings." The freckled girl placed her hand on Queen Leia's shoulder, pretending to be nonchalant, but the distance was already too clear. "Just let it go." Nam frowned, confused. Lingering feelings. Just then, classmates began to gather, some whispering, others mocking, thinking he was following Queen Lei. The freckled girl pointed at him disdainfully, saying, "You should just go home. Otherwise, I'll call the police." Quinley lowered her head, unsure why Nam was there, thinking he didn't want to break up with her. The atmosphere was tense. A calm voice rang out, "Translator, is this your friend?" Hearing him respond that it was just a high school classmate shocked her. Ko-Lam seriously smiled, looking at the two through her sunglasses. The two were frightened by her strong presence. "Who is this woman? How do you know the translator?" Ko-Lam approached with a serious expression, saying to Nam, "The Heavenly Fire situation is more serious than they thought. The principal will take them to the first ignition point. Nam's identity is the invited advisor from the military, so we should go." He immediately agreed. Just then a loud shout echoed and everyone quickly dispersed. Everyone was surprised to see the principal walk in, astonished that he had come since they heard he was very busy. There were rumors that no one had ever seen him smile. They wondered if he was there because of Ko-Lam and the translator. Quinley felt confused, her suspicions rising, while the girl beside her was gleeful, thinking the principal had come to catch Nam. But contrary to their assumptions, the principal approached the two, warmly extending his hand to Nam. "Hello, you must be Advisor Fuang, that the commander introduced, right? Recently, I've been tangled up with unusual matters at the school. I'm worried that the students might get hurt because of the fire. If you could come to resolve this, that would be great," he said, then slightly bowed his head towards the male lead, needing his help with the situation at the gym. The stunned Lai was stopped by the guards outside, along with other unrelated people, all amazed by the principal's behavior towards the male lead after witnessing the recent scene. In the blink of an eye, the crowd's attitude completely changed. The mocking remarks from earlier vanished, replaced by whispers praising the male lead's demeanor and treatment, while Lai stood there stunned, pushed away by the crowd. She stood silently in the midst of the noisy pushing crowd, everyone turning back to question how the male lead could be her boyfriend, doubting her worthiness to stand beside him. And some noticed that throughout the male lead had not looked at Lai at all. She stood frozen, ignoring the crowd's gossip, her face pale. A moment later, at the North Campus of Tantan University, the principal led a group of people forward while recounting the first fire incident at the school. He frowned deeply as he recalled the hellish scene from that day. The principal suddenly paused and continued, "Fortunately, the fires at the other stadiums had been extinguished, only this one remained." The male lead followed his gaze. He thought to himself the acrid smell was overwhelming. The three of them stood in front of the basketball pole, still burning, immediately guessing that this was the cause of the fire. Then unexpectedly, Ko-Lam pulled out a watch from somewhere. He saw it and asked what it was. She stared at the numbers on it and explained that it was a device for detecting unusual spiritual energy. When the threshold exceeds 10, that area must be sealed off, because the lives of ordinary people are incredibly fragile, so this anomaly is a disaster they can't escape from. Ko-Lam finished speaking and the number immediately jumped to 60. Cao Cao. She panicked, exclaiming, "Oh no, the threshold is too high. If we ignore it, not only Tantan University, but the entire city will be affected. So we must immediately mobilize those with the strongest spiritual energy and stability." At that moment, the male lead suddenly climbed over the fence. To the surprise of the other two, she was still focused. But he didn't hesitate to jump into the mouth of the fire pit in an instant, and the index shot up to 110. Lam gasped and screamed as it increased again. This threshold of 110 could put him on the list of S-class anomalies. The principal next to him looked even more confused, wondering what to do now that he had gone inside. Suddenly, the fire in her eyes transformed into a strange beast. Lam wondered why he dared to risk going in alone, even though the strongest warrior in the forbidden area wouldn't do that. Meanwhile, the male lead continued to walk steadily through the sea of flames. He didn't have a single scratch on him. As he walked, he thought about how the Yang attribute had helped him resist this heavenly fire before, and he could naturally block it again, but he couldn't touch it while protecting himself. The primal fire couldn't activate the abilities of his technique. After moving a bit further, he encountered a massive fire dragon, so he needed to get as close as possible to the primal fire. Then the fire dragon suddenly charged toward him. He calmly raised one hand to release his spiritual energy as the dragon got closer. The male lead slightly parted his lips and murmured, "Golden Yang, protect me from the fire dragon," as it opened its mouth wide, seemingly about to swallow him whole. The male lead gritted his teeth, trying to hold on when the system announced the detection of extremely strong heavenly fire fluctuations. He received the notification and chuckled, saying, "It truly lives up to its name." It was whimsical and even more powerful than the wild strength of death, but he had to absorb it. The system received the command and began activating the ultimate calculation ability to compile successfully. The male lead smiled broadly as the system simultaneously announced that he had received several fire attribute techniques and a few other items to remember. He turned the fire dragon straight up into the sky. The techniques he had compiled didn't need to be learned, they were unlocked immediately. After that, hundreds of fire dragons charged down, and the male lead's eyes suddenly turned completely white. While extracting the heavenly fire attribute, he tightly shut his eyes as red stripes slowly appeared on his face. It didn't stop there, the stripes gradually spread, causing him to furrow his brows. Then he opened his eyes wide, clapped his hands together, and shouted, "9 dragons, heavenly fire sealing technique." As he finished speaking, several iron chains emerged from his back, stretching out to capture each fire dragon that was roaring behind him. Lam and the principal were both stunned to witness this phenomenon. This is the sealing aura I've seen before from high-level cultivators in the Forbidden Army. The technique is different from the method, but the sealing aura is extremely similar. Amidst the iron chains, the male lead cleared his throat and shouted, "Gather the fierce heavenly fire!" It began to be drawn into the chains, which expanded to swallow all the heavenly fire. The male lead gently embraced the chains that were devouring the flames. The heavenly seal was successful. As soon as he landed, he released his grip to keep the heavenly fire suspended in midair. The male lead glanced at it and said, "I will temporarily seal the heavenly fire here. For now, don't release the seal or repair it, and don't allow anyone to come near. This way, at least the heavenly fire won't continue to spread." The principal assured him, after he finished his instructions, "Rest assured the stadium will not be unsealed. After all, the school has more than just this stadium." But meanwhile, Lamb stood quietly to the side, unusually silent. The male lead then joked, "Bak really is generous having 7 or 8 stadiums." He felt a bit awkward responding, "That's quite humorous, advisor. If you need anything..." Before he could finish, Lamb suddenly interrupted, "Principal, I still have some things to discuss with Advisor Fuang." The principal immediately turned around with a bright smile. No problem. Please go ahead." He looked at her in confusion and asked, "What's up?" Lamb stepped in front of the male lead and said, "Advisor, you really are good at hiding things." He humbly replied, "It's nothing special. This heavenly fire is very powerful and quite difficult to deal with." She straightforwardly pointed out, "Stop pretending to be clueless. You know I'm talking about your hidden talents and levels, right?" Even though it had been exposed, Lamb's next words didn't change the male lead's expression. "Well, that's fine. It's normal for a cultivator to have secrets, especially someone as strong as you. Advisor Fuang, although I don't have the right to ask you to do anything, I hope you'll listen to what I have to say next." Suddenly, the scene of the ruined city appeared, marking a crucial moment of great change in this world. The country desperately needed top talents like you. Let me put it this way. When the spiritual energy fully recovers, you will be equivalent to a nuclear deterrent. He paused for a moment, and Lam mentioned that the male lead would be highly sought after by military forbidden zones, spiritual energy associations, and even foreign countries. She circled around but didn't forget to invite him into her forbidden area, yet she still advised the male lead to think carefully. He listened to every word, remaining silent for a moment before questioning why the group. Lam didn't want to pull him into her team. She hesitated for a moment before finally answering. Of course, it's because of that legendary forbidden military district. They're so powerful that they seem a bit abnormal, so I think you'd be more interested in them. The male lead smiled gently. Top tier level, huh? Upon hearing this, she confirmed, "Of course, but I don't meet them often. I've heard they've been very busy lately." This statement made him think that the top military was so pressured that even other military districts knew about it. In the next moment, Lam turned around and repeated the principal's invitation to dinner. The male lead silently followed, thinking that they seemed to be facing some significant troubles as well. He could picture the scene of them facing those strange beasts every day. The male lead understood that this meant the number of anomalies had increased, along with many powerful practitioners with strong spiritual energy. He felt uneasy, thinking that his preparations were still insufficient as the day of spiritual energy recovery approached. The male lead quietly considered how to make the most of the heavenly fire attribute he had just acquired on the stadium. The heavenly fire spread chaotically, burning everything in its path, leaving nothing behind like an endless wild flame, perfect for dealing with the infinite anomalies proliferating across the land. Suddenly he remembered something. The male lead thought to himself, "Isn't this a perfect match for my chainfire sword technique? Adding demonic energy would be like icing on the cake, the more the better." In the distance, the towering mountains loomed. Holding the sword, the male lead entered the forest, immediately drawn in by the information before him. As soon as he arrived at the Forbidden Mountain, he sensed no abnormalities, but this place was sealed off. Although the military news hadn't arrived quickly, he couldn't help but doubt that the Spiritual Energy Association had caught on to his plans. The male lead chuckled lightly, thinking about whether this land was given to him for testing. In that case, it's better to obey than to resist. Suddenly he realized something. His instincts told him that there was a surge of energy from the hybrid creatures. At that moment, he caught sight of something moving stealthily in the trees, a fierce anomaly staring intently at its prey. But he remained incredibly calm, smiling confidently. It had intelligence and was weighing its enemy's strength to decide whether to attack or not. If that's the case, then let's watch closely. The male lead quickly accepted the system's request to channel spiritual energy into the sword, causing it to immediately blaze with light. The flames from the sword erupted fiercely, the heavenly fire burning, eternally, never extinguishing. The male lead's excited gaze startled the opponent, making it jump. Curious about what effect his spiritual energy would have on the anomaly, he swung the sword, unleashing countless sparks to test it. At that moment, the anomaly panicked, unable to react in time, and the powerful flames surged toward it. It was only then that it realized, screaming loudly while fleeing. The male lead triumphantly approached the anomaly, continuously praising this power that had doubled. Moreover, this surge of energy posed no threat to him. The male lead's fingers lightly glided over the sword, and as soon as he touched it, he felt a chill. So he decided to chase after that hybrid creature. Elsewhere in the forest, a phone was turned on, broadcasting live with a voice echoing, chatting casually. She posed for the camera that was recording, even though it was her first day live streaming. But the content seemed to find her on its own, and the frame kept flashing with provocative messages. Suddenly, she noticed something beside her, and in an instant, that thing lunged at her, knocking her down. The phone in her hand flew straight to the ground, shattering into pieces. The anomaly, ignoring her screams, pinned her to the ground. Viewers quickly realized what was happening and continuously commented while her neck was still being tightly gripped by its rough hand, her eyes filled with tears, pleading. The anomaly seemed to go mad, greedily eyeing the delicious prey before it. Suddenly from behind them, other transformed dragons charged and causing online viewers to exclaim as the view count skyrocketed to unbelievable numbers. Then a figure appeared behind her, making her momentarily startled. "You are..." Then she rushed to grab the phone, frantically raising it to film, boasting, "I got it." Someone stood amidst the flames in the photo, the male lead with his sword in the fire, making the atmosphere even more thrilling. Surely a divine being had come to save her. After the live stream, images of him quickly appeared in the news, sparking lively discussions. Meanwhile, a woman, unable to hide her excitement, called out to Queen Lee to come over and check out the bold news from the male lead. But she was immediately denied. Suddenly, Queen Lee glanced at her surprised and shouted, teasing the woman, who laughed joyfully, "What I said is true. He's so cool." Meanwhile, Queen Lee's face darkened, affirming, "This video is definitely fake. It's all just special effects," Queen Lee told herself. "It can't be him. He just has a similar build. If it really is him, he would have been burned to ashes by now. If it's true, he would have taken the opportunity to take revenge on me. I won't bow down." Elsewhere, a beautiful 81-year-old woman received a notification and hurriedly showed her phone to Ye, asking if this person looked familiar. "He looks just like the practitioner who saved us from the vines earlier." She happily agreed with her, and at the same time, Hyonya also saw that image of the male lead. "Lao Li, do you think he could be Fang? The feeling is much stronger now." He was surprised. "Oh my, that sword-swinging posture is exactly the same. We really have latched onto a big fish." In the towering building, a serious voice echoed, "The city's crisis is approaching while our practitioners are not strong enough to cope inside the auditorium." Ten Huyen and the others were discussing, and Lam suspiciously asked, "Hanle, how many attributes does he have?" He replied, 3 or more. She then spoke up. "He is saying that the higher-ups have decided to go themselves." Han frowned and interrupted with a reassuring tone. Then he stood up and left, casually tossing out the order to handle this mess. Tan Huyn was so worried that he was sweating. The entire spiritual community of the lower kingdom was already paying attention to him. Even Kurlam had to sigh, truly, making people look forward to a different scene. The heart rate monitor was steadily beeping and joyful sounds echoed. "Teacher, it seems the lower kingdom has a new hope." Ja. Lam sat by the hospital bed, his voice tinged with sadness. A person with such power appearing was a chance for him to wake up adding a glimmer of hope. The sun rose, rays of light shining down. It was already the next day, and the male lead sat in the house. Silently reflecting on the image of himself being filmed yesterday, he was eating bread while pondering why the live video had been locked. Suddenly, the male lead glanced to the side and realized Lam Yawai hadn't come home all night. She hadn't even texted him. The male lead, with a worried expression, picked up the phone to call YY, but there was no response. Why did it feel like something was off? This girl couldn't be that unreliable, could she? The fear in his heart quickly overwhelmed him. Finally, the male lead decided to go look for her, returning to where the two of them were. YY, anxious, asked her how long they had been stuck there. Both of them were now covered in injuries. The beautiful 81-year-old woman struggled to speak. "Sorry, it's been about 10 hours. I dragged you into this. At first I thought it was just an ordinary ghost." She clutched her wound at her waist, groaning in pain. YY's calm demeanor was hard to believe as she reassured, "It's still my fault for not being strong enough. Remember to always stay alert and conserve your energy." Then she recalled watching a battle. If only she could be like that powerful being. But no one noticed the shadow of the strange beast lurking behind her. As YY turned her head, she saw the strange beast Doong rushing towards her. She quickly warned her teammates to be careful and unleashed a wave of spiritual energy. The force shot past its head, knocking the strange beast's head off. The beautiful 81-year-old woman gasped, "Are these the people who got stuck and died here?" YY frowned and replied, "After becoming a zombie, it wants to assimilate all of us." At this point, the 81-year-old realized that their attacks were ineffective, and their spiritual energy was depleting quickly. It seemed like it was waiting for them to exhaust all their spiritual energy before truly hunting them down like prey. It felt invincible. A cold wind blew past, and she hesitated for a few seconds when she looked up at the giant eye in front of her. The 81-year-old couldn't help but exclaim loudly as the eye suddenly appeared with several tears. From there, it duplicated into similar eyes. The 81-year-old angrily slashed at them, and YY quickly reminded her, "The thing is starting to lose patience. Don't let your guard down." Suddenly, she noticed something unusual behind her. A cold gaze swept over her. When she looked back, she found herself surrounded by about 10 eyes. She felt despair, thinking she was about to die. YY felt that both she and the 81-year-old had been swallowed by darkness. At that moment, she felt guilty towards her teammates and regretted not being able to see the magnificent waves after the spiritual energy recovered. In the end, YY helplessly closed her eyes. Just when she was at her most desperate, a ray of light split the sky. The male lead flew in with a powerful aura. He whispered, "I almost missed this scene." YY was so happy, she almost cried as that immense power struck the ground nearby. At that moment, YY realized her cousin was not an ordinary person. But before she could rejoice, she quickly shouted a warning when she saw the strange beast preparing to attack the male lead. He drew his sword, calmly wanting to test the effectiveness of this weapon. The male lead glanced to locate the strange beast, and then slashed with a fiery sword technique. The strange beast was burned to the point of being unrecognizable, making YY shudder at the sight. The 81-year-old, just waking up, couldn't help but doubt, "Are we going to die?" She asked in shock, "Are we going to hell with the strange beast?" YY quickly corrected her. "No, we're still alive." The 81-year-old, regaining her senses, added, "We're alive. Wait, he is..." The male lead had to speak up. "It's all taken care of." They hadn't even had breakfast yet. The two girls, however, the beautiful 81-year-old woman didn't care, her eyes widening as she flew over to express her admiration for her savior, making him feel quite embarrassed. Hearing this, YY, standing beside her, curiously asked, "Is the fire system expert who saved me your cousin?" The beautiful 81-year-old was taken aback. "The super powerful leader is your cousin. Did you not say he was very ordinary?" The male lead witnessed this comical scene and could only stand there laughing foolishly, while she completely lost control, excitedly shaking YY and recounting her cousin's glorious achievements despite having confirmed the identity of the other. But this, combined with the earlier scene of using lightning attributes, made her even more bewildered. A dual element genius with lightning and fire attributes far surpassing her. Could it be that he had truly broken through to the realm of spirit creation? He really was her cousin. Finally, the male lead had to admit his identity while also asking some questions about dealing with the dark system. "Why are there only two of you? Where are the other teammates?" Immediately, the woman fell into contemplation and recounted everything. 5 Mao was seriously ill, and now the family had discovered and detained him. The uncle had a different, more difficult mission than the other friends. YY's expression darkened instinctively as she avoided eye contact. This time, it was her underestimating the enemy. "If I can break through to the 3rd level of the noble rank, it will definitely be fine." The main character, feeling speechless, thought deeply about how he couldn't deny that those teammates had their own selfish interests. Eventually, Team 5 would disband and Team 81 would undergo unexpected changes. Perhaps his cousin Min had sensed it early on. Breaking away from his thoughts, he immediately stated his purpose. "Now that we know each other's identities, I trust you two." Just then, Tuan's face proposed a very enticing offer, but with the condition that they couldn't disclose it outside. He was about to speak when the cheerful demeanor of Team 81 made him pause. He could only look at him with tear-filled eyes out of emotion. Perhaps his cousin had quietly protected him all along on this lonely path of cultivation. There are still trustworthy people who wholeheartedly help. That's such a happy thing. Tears of joy rolled down her cheeks, and in an instant, Y's face changed degrees, breaking into a radiant smile as he thanked his cousin. Still happily asking for 2 more fried eggs, suddenly the phone rang a few times. Y, while bowing his head to check, reported that Sister Lam had just issued a new mission. On the screen, the task to head to the extreme Yin territory was clearly displayed. Collect items related to the dark system. Think carefully before registering. The main character skimmed through it and became interested, asking her about this territory. Y worriedly replied that the extreme Yin territory was strictly prohibited by the lower kingdom. Because the darkness inside is extremely strong. Most anomalies in the city currently come from that area, and the authorities have never explored deeply into this forbidden zone. The main character suddenly told her to ask for more details about the mission. But from this incident, he suddenly thought of 2 possibilities. Sister Lam was either someone of special status, or she was actually a high-ranking member of the military. Y followed the main character's advice and messaged to ask more about the mission's content. Yet Sister Lam immediately explained the details of the mission, which left Team 81 wide-eyed in astonishment. She particularly reminded them to think carefully before acting. If they had strong and reliable allies, they should form a team. Only then should they register. It wouldn't be too late. She swiped her hand across the screen, waiting to see if they would agree. The main character crossed his arms and read the reminder again. In his heart, he understood the opponent's overall intention. He raised an eyebrow and said to Y, "Looks like this is aimed at me." Thinking about that territory, he excitedly exclaimed, "That's interesting. This extreme Yin territory, I really should take a trip there." The system displayed a high-risk mission with a very high mortality rate. If they had strong and reliable practitioners to form a team, registering later wouldn't be too late. The woman in the suit spoke up, "Sister Lam." "Our squad here," Sister Lam interrupted. "It's fine if he's a worthy practitioner for the lower kingdom to entrust their trust to him. He will come." The other person's gaze darkened, but if he doesn't come, then this batch of practitioners... Sister Lam's expression darkened. "If he doesn't come, it means fate hasn't arrived." She tightly held the bouquet of flowers. "Do you think the mission to collect the 7-petal flower is intentionally leading strong practitioners to their deaths?" The girl quickly replied, Sister Lam gently placed the bouquet down on the table. "The mission to collect the 7-petal flower is a life or death task. Its core purpose is entirely opposite to its appearance." She continued. "This is the inevitable path to accumulate strength for the lower kingdom. Only by collecting the 7-petal flower can we save more practitioners." Sister Lam immediately thought of everyone on the high-speed train, even as the core force of the lower kingdom in the future. She gazed at the deep blue sky, whether it was the top fighting force that continued to fall life and death unknown. She bent down, holding the hand of the old man who was in a coma. No matter what, we must collect more 7-petal flowers. The old man's face was covered in veins. As the only practitioner of the lower kingdom to reach the Vajra realm, he must use the 7-petal flower to heal and awaken him. The image of practitioners fighting hard appeared. The existence of Vajra-level experts after the recovery of spiritual energy was no less valuable than today's nuclear weapons. That is our greatest support in negotiations with other countries before and after the recovery of spiritual energy. Therefore, even if we sacrifice a few Sister Lam, a few troops, or even more practitioners, it would all be worth it. The woman in the suit couldn't help but worry. The mission is important, but your health is equally important. Sister Lam bit her lip, feeling bitter. Is my health important? Yes, it really is. Because my life depends on my teammates. Her face gradually turned pale. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have gotten angry with you. The girl waved her hand. Sister Lam, I misspoke. Is your headache acting up again? Her gaze briefly showed sadness. It's okay. It's not time for my medication yet. I just wanted to... It's all in the past now. The images of those who had fallen still lingered deeply in Sister Lam's mind. Team, please withdraw immediately. The bodies lay scattered across the extreme Yin territory. It truly was an astonishing place. The man reached out to Sister Lam. Little Lam, the mission to collect the 7-petal flower, we can only entrust it to you. For the teacher, for the lower kingdom, for everyone. Tears streamed down her face. No, I'm not going. Captain... The man used his last bit of strength to transfer a wave of our elemental power to Sister Lam. I hope you can make good use of it. You must survive and return. Although Sister Lam couldn't hide her sadness, they had transferred spiritual energy to her, but didn't know that if tainted by blood or failing to collect all the 7-petal flowers, it would become useless. 4 to 5 minutes later, the main character and the others were still striding through the mountain ranges. The beautiful woman 81 seemed exhausted, but still had to walk a few more kilometers. Suddenly she looked at Y and said, Hey boss Y, everyone has become so strong. Can we fly a bit further? Y immediately responded that when the spiritual energy wasn't abundant enough for the human body to fly freely, even the cultivators couldn't do it. The male lead gazed into the distance and suddenly spoke, Is this the dark realm? The male lead's eyebrows furrowed tightly covered by dark attributes. And despite the layers of barriers, he could still sense that unpleasant smell causing the beautiful 81-year-old woman to show a hint of discomfort. This horrible stench is 100 times scarier than the abnormal creature we encountered last night, not to mention 1,000 times. Y still maintained her serious and calm demeanor. It had already arrived. The male lead spoke up. Not bad, look ahead. I didn't expect so many cultivators to come here. Y stepped forward. That's right. I think it's not just for the so-called generous rewards, but also like what I and 81 encountered. The dark attributes are very difficult to deal with, bloodthirsty and full of hostility towards humans. The dark shadows are advancing into the city. But now there have been more than one unusual riot of dark attributes in the city. He agreed. That's right. You once faced 2 dark attribute abnormalities, dark monsters, that seemed to want to devour the male lead. One was a mutated rabbit, but instead of a wild rabbit, it resembled a large rodent. He remembered the time he almost got caught in that boxed lunch. His brows instinctively knitted together. There was also a large snake lurking in the factory at night, which had a higher intelligence than the mutated rabbit. They could cooperate to create traps that nearly wiped out the entire Spirit Association. The most important thing was, just as YY said, these abnormalities are extremely cunning. They seem to deliberately avoid the military's defenses at the city's border, where the defensive line is shielded by large barriers. The entire city was engulfed in flames, although he didn't know how they did it. But now the abnormalities appearing in the city are becoming more frequent. It's getting harder to stop them. The male lead's face turned grim. So we must definitely go on a trip to Tang Huyen with a group of cultivators at the border. She seemed to realize something and suddenly stopped. Wait, he's here too, and he brought along 2 girls? The girl with green hair called out Boss Tan Huyen and mumbled a prayer to Amitabha Buddha. Buddha, please don't let us be discovered. The male lead was confused. That person over there is Captain To, right? The girl with green hair replied, Oh, it's you. You're here in the dark realm too. That's great. Tan Huyen scratched his head and smiled awkwardly. The information about the translation has been synchronized by the military for a long time. 81 pointed at the girl. Who is this? Could she be YY's sister-in-law? Hearing this, YY was shocked. Huh? Cousin Tan Huyen. She blushed and quickly explained. Oh my god, what a big misunderstanding. He's definitely not. This is the one who does the chores for Captain To of the Spirit Association. Tan Huyen calmed down. Why do I feel this is even more ear-piercing? Suddenly a voice came from behind a bunch of kids boasting shamelessly. A cultivator carrying a gun on his shoulder shouted loudly, These cultivators nowadays, the younger ones, have no manners at all. If you meet older folks and don't greet them, that's one thing. But arguing loudly, without even looking at where this is. I hope that later in the dark realm you can trust each other like this. 81 was extremely furious. See, my temper is flaring up again. Do you know who these people are? The male lead signaled to stop. 81 mocked, You should worry about yourself. Who knows who might get scared to death later. The cultivator looked back at him and smiled faintly. The car is coming. Let's go take a look. The car door slowly opened and Jia Lam stood tall in the doorway. Everyone couldn't help but be astonished. This is Sister Jia Lam. Jia Lam approached. It's really her. 81 was a bit curious. What kind of identity does she have? Quite impressive. The male lead replied, she's probably the one here to open the door for us. Jia Lam glanced at the male lead, then walked to the border gate. She raised her hand and threw something at the door, and the veins in her eyes bulged. The mystical border gate gradually faded away. A surge of red power quickly spread out and the people had arrived. The gate opened, and after passing through the border, Jia Lam turned back and said, you can enter now, but I want to remind you of something. The 7 withered flowers you collected must be complete and not stained with human blood. The group of the male lead listened in silence. If they don't meet the requirements, you won't be able to claim the reward. If there are no issues, then let's begin. The cultivator scolded himself as he entered. Don't go and get us killed. Even compensation after death won't be given right. The young man behind her was extremely annoyed. We could only report him missing if the government compensated his family with a large sum of money. Doesn't that just prove they killed him? Tan Huynh turned to look at Nam, saying that the middle-aged man might be similar to him, creating a spiritual realm. Besides, among those silent people, there seemed to be a few experts, but they might have retracted their spiritual energy. It's not easy to judge. The others are also practitioners with solid cultivation among the 2-star ghost realm. The strength of each team of 5 is roughly equal. Nam's face was ashen as he replied, looks like this mission is quite tough. I didn't expect they would find so many elite teams of 5 like this. Doubts began to arise in his heart. The person earlier was also a spiritual realm practitioner, but their level of spiritual energy wasn't necessarily high. The girl next to Jia Lam spoke up, having completed the statistics of characters in this dark area. There are 7 people in the 2-star ghost realm, 12 people in the 3-star ghost realm, and 3 in the 1-star spiritual realm. The difficulty level for this mission is classified as level B. Jia Lam watched the group walking ahead. The preparations for the monitoring equipment were already completed. Don't worry, the scenery on the other side of the border is desolate with no signs of life. The smell here made 81 and YY feel uncomfortable. Nam reminded them to stay close. The dark attributes here would obscure their vision. If we don't stick together and act as one, we'll soon get lost and easily lose our bearings. 81 sat down, saying, sorry, I feel nauseous, I can't hold it in. Tan Huynh gently comforted her. It's okay. This is the smell of decaying corpses and mixed brain fluids. It's not just you feeling nauseous. That's quite normal. She forced a smile, noting that the group ahead had a similar level of cultivation. You all are feeling sick. Tan Huynh explained further that the dark attributes have a natural restraint against practitioners. She could interpret it as a type of pollution, an abnormal existence in this extremely dark area. She continued to elaborate on the B-level anomalies similar to the ghost realm, where the damage range can be controlled. The A-level anomalies are similar to the spiritual realm's violent energy or commonly seen gathering places. For example, in this dark area, the S-level anomaly is comparable to the golden armor realm, or even higher, almost at the level of a major disaster. However, it must be emphasized that the dark attribute anomalies in this dark area will be enhanced. Anomalies originally classified as B-level here can at least be upgraded by 1 level. Captain YY helped 8901 to her feet, asking, is that really the case? It's the first time I've heard of that. I understand now. What about Captain Toe? Are you all okay? 81 asked curiously. Aren't you all contaminated? Tan Huynh laughed, avoiding the topic of her own breakthrough to the 3-star ghost realm. You're overthinking it. My teammates and I often handle similar anomalies, so we're not afraid of the stench. Moreover, recently I've been rigorously required to elevate myself from the water attribute to the ice attribute. Our levels are quite similar. YY's voice was weak. Captain, do you feel like I do? As soon as I entered this thick fog, my spiritual energy began to drop, significantly worse than the situation I faced in the last mission. Tan Huynh replied that many experts had perished here before. Among them were even those from the army in the 1-star spiritual realm. So we must be even more careful. Upon hearing this, 81 felt a bit scared. Let's go quickly, the mission is important. Waiki carefully helped 81 walk, but they could no longer see anyone ahead. Let's get a bit closer. Next, I'll talk less to conserve energy, and everyone should focus their spiritual energy to avoid letting this fog take advantage of any openings. Nam walked while pondering. After entering, it felt like his body wasn't as uncomfortable as before. It seems that the positive and thunder attributes, along with the auxiliary version of the demon enhancement, are effective in dispelling the dark attributes. Or perhaps after I leveled up to the spiritual realm, the effects of my spiritual energy became stronger. On the other side, a red-armored practitioner was fighting against an abnormal beast in the dark area. That's all there is to it. He surged forward with momentum. Brothers 7 rotten flowers will definitely be collected by us. He turned to the group of young people saying, let's show them what a real strength is. Another added, you did great, charge ahead, come back this way. Seeing YY coughing violently, 81 looked over worriedly. Nam also turned his head to look, thinking that after all she was still a child. YY was momentarily stunned when she felt Nam pat her back. She was astonished by this feeling. The nausea and the darkness consuming her both vanished. It felt warm, like basking in the sun during winter. The sound of admiration rang out. Truly, this was the power of the spiritual realm. We looked at her hand, feeling the warm fire attribute. It truly was a rare, high-level attribute since leveling up to the ghost realm. It's as warm as basking in the sun during winter. The voice of admiration echoed truly the power of the spirit realm. Emi looked at her hand, the warmth of the fire attribute. Truly a rare, high-level attribute since leveling up to the demon realm. Why is it that I only now get to delve deeper into my affinity for plants, which has a knack for absorbing the essence of dew from the flora under the sky? The water attribute transforming into the ice attribute of Captain Teo is also quite rare. The male lead casually replied, "It's not the fire attribute, but the positive attribute." He hadn't explained clearly to me that he was the one handling the fire emergency at the North Drain and the training ground at Tantan University, speaking in a nonchalant tone. But these two anomalies are different. The positive attribute and the heavenly fire attribute are also slightly different. Tan Huynh shouted, "Are you just going to admit that? So does that mean you now have 3 rare high-level attributes?" The male lead thought to himself that there was actually also the wild attribute, but the chow tree is easily knocked down by the wind, so he kept it for protection. He replied, "Just let it go? Is that how it is? And what about 81? I'm shaking. I haven't broken through the 3-star ghost realm. I can't clearly sense the attribute, but generally, I'm following the path of the metal attribute. Oh, great deity. I promise that once I get outside, I won't disturb you again. Your positive attribute warms me a little." The male lead gently touched 81's back. "All right. Warm me up for a day," the girl with golden hair said, confused by the scene before her. "What are you all doing, patting each other like that?" 81 sighed. "So warm." He suggested to Tan Huynh and Captain Toe's group, "Why don't you all do the same?" She replied, "It feels pretty good." The 2 girls in cloaks were also excited. "What are we waiting for?" They were each granted a flow of warm spiritual energy from the male lead. Suddenly the footsteps of a strange beast approached. The male lead glanced over alert and announced. Tan Huynh launched an attack towards the strange beast. "What the heck is that?" 81 is right in front. She jumped in surprise, her loud warning echoing. "It's an A-level anomaly." Tan Huynh gathered ice spiritual energy in her hand and launched a direct attack at the strange beast standing in front of YY. This level of difficulty? Has it disappeared? The zombie horde suddenly appeared from nowhere. The male lead quickly pulled everyone close, carefully drawing his sword for defense. His gaze carried a murderous intent as he advanced. Each swing of his sword was like the roar of a fire dragon. The zombies screamed in pain as they were burned. The flames in the male lead's eyes gradually faded. "We're temporarily safe. This anomaly has dissipated." There seemed to be many eyes, but in reality there are only 2. He stroked his chin. "I didn't expect the anomaly here to evolve and mimic human language." Tan Huynh added, "It could be because it has eaten a lot of people, so it learned. Even the weakest ones are nurtured in the extreme dark area to A level. If it weren't for the right conditions, we couldn't engage them directly." Jia Lam looked at the blazing fire before him, sighing in admiration. Just one blow has taken down 2 A-level phantom beasts. She didn't show any emotion. Even if it were me, I would at least have to fight it a few rounds. On the other side, YY clenched her fists. "If what Captain Toe said is true, then we need to unite even more. Otherwise, I think the high-level anomalies will usually disguise and infiltrate while we let our guard down to attack." 81 got up. 81 was still terrified. The oppressive aura was too frightening, more formidable than Mew Mew and the zombies. Just touching it a little could incinerate me. Is this the pressure of the realm? I felt like I couldn't breathe. The male lead suddenly focused on the mountain beside them. "Yeah, look over there. Everyone, do you hear that? Is there the sound of waves ahead?" Suddenly the ground shook violently. Everyone scrambled to run in panic. One person shouted, "Run! Don't fight anymore. This thing is so demonic. Help me, I see a ghost." The male lead's expression didn't change. He merely frowned. The remaining cultivators turned to flee. This was something even the legendary army would suffer heavy losses against the dark tide. At this moment, a dark red tsunami was rushing toward everyone. They ran and screamed in fear, while a shrimp-headed man, instead of fleeing, stayed behind to set up a barrier. His face showed greed, and then he confidently charged straight into the tsunami. But as soon as he made contact, he was left gasping, his voice filled with regret. "Damn it, the anomaly is here." As he spoke, the waves seemed to transform into a demon gnawing him to death. Next, those who were fleeing were caught up one by one. Looking at the raging wave before him, the Tan Huynh spoke with deep sympathy. "They're beyond saving, aren't they? Can we still run?" Beside her, the male lead looked confused and asked, "What is the dark tide?" Even in this extremely tense situation, she calmly explained to him, "The dark tide is a phenomenon that can swallow everything, while also wandering." Clearly, this plan was supposed to avoid the tidal wave. Oh my gosh, have all the people in front already perished? At this moment, Lamiyai seemed unable to hold back anymore and asked him, "Can we run ahead?" Facing everyone's worries, he set up a barrier while reassuring them, "We can gather our strength to maintain this barrier and protect everyone through the onslaught of the tide." Realizing the male lead's intention in setting up this barrier, Tan Huynh angrily shouted, "What do you want to do? Our strength cannot hold back this dark tide," ignoring her advice. At this moment, he had begun channeling his energy to create a weapon, confidently declaring that he could destroy it. Then he immediately shot up into the sky without a hint of hesitation. He flew straight into the center of this wave, entering the space around the protagonist, who was now surrounded by a circle of light while the area around was pitch black. Yet with just a glance, he quickly assessed the current situation. Looking at the demons before him, he thought to himself that this anomaly was indeed an A-level abnormality. However, they were an upgraded fused version, he remarked. The protagonist's expression gradually turned serious as he thought about the jump from B-level to A-level, then from A to S, and the current level of this dark tide could easily be considered SSS. No wonder it could swallow even the celestial practitioners of the spirit creation realm. With this in mind, the protagonist immediately concentrated his energy into his palm, then moved around while attacking the demons. Suddenly, one demon appeared behind him, intending to ambush him. Thanks to his keen senses, he quickly turned around and slashed at the demon, but something caught his attention. Looking at the person before him, the protagonist recognized it was the same person from earlier. He then asked with concern, "Are you still alive?" Seemingly recognizing the protagonist's voice, the man struggled to respond, making the protagonist realize he still had a chance to survive. Without hesitation, he raised one hand to the sky to summon divine thunder. And as he did so, a bolt of lightning suddenly appeared out of nowhere, striking the shrimp-headed man. After rescuing him, the protagonist casually tossed him to the ground. Upon careful observation, he became more certain of his suspicions. That he could still save him, but the chances of survival were not high. At this moment, the monster from earlier had also caught up. The protagonist glanced at it, gripping his sword tightly, preparing to continue the fight. However, upon seeing the monster grow larger, he realized this was the ability of infinite enhancement. Even though it had become stronger, he still calmly smiled, deciding to use it to test a new technique. Instantly, a protective barrier made of energy surrounded the protagonist. This prevented the monster from getting close. At that moment, the system suddenly displayed a notification indicating that there seemed to be dark attributes around, but he couldn't extract them. He still faced them, trying to grasp them, but to no avail. Back in reality, the protagonist smiled charmingly yet mysteriously. Instead of running away from danger, he thought of many ways to fight back. 2 giant spiders lunged directly at him. Yet at this moment, he still had the mood to think about Xiao Baihua and turned to look at them, wanting to measure their heights. The protagonist's eyes sparkled with a brilliant flame, secretly looking down on them, thinking, isn't it already prepared? From a distance, Tan Huin's team could only stand there wide-eyed watching. One person spoke up asking if she had ever encountered a situation like this. To Tan Huin could only accept her own weakness with a sigh. They were dumbfounded, unable to believe that the dark tide could remain still. Suddenly, Lam Yi's body trembled violently, a wave of anxiety rising in her heart, worrying about whether her cousin YY had been in there for too long. What if something happened? To Tan Huin, standing beside her, took her hand to comfort her, assuring her that with their strength, victory was definitely within their grasp. After saying this, she turned to the others and immediately said, "With the protagonist's strength, there's no need for the shrimp to step in and help." Hearing Tan Huin say this, Wais immediately laughed, praising her. But suddenly a column of energy flew in and struck their shield, causing the light column to intensify even more. It seemed to be the 9-dragon heavenly fire sealing technique. From within the lighted column, the protagonist emerged floating in the air. The curly-haired girl was the first to react excitedly, pointing at him and shouting, "There's YY's cousin!" Then from the technique, 5 or 6 dragons suddenly flew out. They could only exclaim in awe. In another corner, Jia Lam witnessed this and also shouted, wondering if the protagonist had successfully sealed the attribute of heavenly fire. Shifting scenes to him, he was gritting his teeth, appearing to struggle immensely, his small body enduring. He raised a massive surge of power, shouting the 9-dragon command. After finishing, he threw it straight to the ground, creating a terrifying impact. He then took advantage of the flames caused by the explosion to use his sealing skill. The flames quickly gathered into a sphere surrounding him, but suddenly that sphere burst apart, and his body was thrown straight to the ground. They breathed a sigh of relief, looking at each other, wondering how to handle this. Lam Yi, ignoring her words, turned to cling to the protagonist. To Tan Huin then spoke up, wanting him to hand over the task to her. She looked at the protagonist's expression, puzzled as to why he didn't seem happy, but deep down she admired him. She said she wanted to go eliminate the dark tide, and she had really done it. The protagonist coldly turned away, saying that the dark attributes here were too abundant and they needed to move quickly. Taking the opportunity to gather the 17 Toi Hua To, Tan Huin immediately replied, "We will take this person back to Ling Hiep for treatment." Their voices stunned those in front, who all understood now. The protagonist calmly explained that aside from this person, everyone else had likely been consumed by the dark attributes. The voice of number 81 carries a hint of regret, yet it has all vanished now. Luckily, I didn't witness them die. The group continued on their way to a pitch-black lake, where the greatest danger now lies behind this dark pond, so he could cover us better. They obediently followed his gaze, staring at the lake as the system notification began to check the intense dark attribute waves. A surge of dark power erupted from the water, confirming the test was successful. As the central force activated, they dispersed into columns of power, shooting straight up into the sky. The main character slowly absorbed them all, and the system's voice announced the successful compilation as he opened his eyes. His entire body was enveloped in a mysterious power. The system panel appeared indicating he had acquired the dark attribute technique, allowing him to create a space where spiritual energy would be corroded. He gradually understood that the corrosive effect of the dark attribute could wear down the opponent's spiritual power, and if combined with his technique, it would become even more formidable. Back in reality, To Tan-Huynh suddenly felt something was off. She turned to the main character asking if he felt this fog, but before she could finish, her eyes widened in horror as she saw him floating in midair. How could he break through again? A thought flashed through her mind. Could he be absorbing the power of the dark tide? But that idea was quickly dismissed as To Tan-Huynh scanned her surroundings, sensing the power intensifying, yet absorbing dark attributes was strictly forbidden by the government. She couldn't help but recall the horrifying scenes from before. The government had also tried to research ways to purify and refine the dark attributes, but at a terrible cost. Although the ranks ranged from D to S, even a D rank was enough to make a newly initiated cultivator in the ghost realm suffer all kinds of torment, let alone a spirit creation realm. Even 10 spirit creation realms could be devoured at will. The cultivators who underwent the experiments lost their mental clarity, driven mad. After it ended, the main character returned to his original state and coldly spoke into the air. "Come out, you've been watching us for a long time." From the shadows, Jia Lam slowly stepped out. "Let me guess, the dark tide is due to your sealing." To Tan-Huynh was taken aback, staring at the woman in front of her. Jia Lam continued to interrogate. "What were you doing just now?" He didn't hide it and admitted, "That's right." To Tan-Huynh was stunned, turning to the main character. Suddenly, Jia Lam reached into her coat, and in the next moment she pulled out a gun, causing everyone present to panic and shout, "Sister Jia Lam, what are you doing?" "I remember that the translator is the target the military wants to recruit the most." "What do you mean?" The main character still exuded a cold, calm demeanor. "Our mission is to find the 7 withered flowers. It seems you're not happy because we haven't died here." Jia Lam still didn't respond, only intently observing his every move. Number 81 hurriedly ran up to intervene, asking why she hadn't acted earlier. If it weren't for him, everyone would have perished there. Now she even wanted to make things difficult for the boss. Finally, she stopped jokingly. "Congratulations, you've passed the test." Seeing this, they finally breathed a sigh of relief. The main character suddenly asked Jia Lam, "So your purpose is to test me?" She had no reason to hide and immediately admitted it. "Because you have talent and strength, I wanted to see it for myself." Then she reiterated to answer the question of why she hadn't acted, because cultivators can only abide by the rules of cultivators. And life and death are all fated. However, you guys are lucky to have someone trustworthy to protect you. Not realizing why there hadn't been any anomalies attacking them, they had been sealed by the power of the translator, making them fear the dark tide, bullying the weak and fearing the strong. "Let me lead everyone to find the 7 withered flowers." She turned back to order, and the main character looked at Jia Lam, assessing her. He felt something was off about her. To Tan-Huynh whispered to him that previously she was the only one who escaped the dark tide. The main character suddenly understood the issue, as her identity required absolute obedience and indifference to the mission's rules, while also possessing a kind of determination that helped her persist. He then relaxed his guard and turned to tell everyone to be considerate of the injured person. Number 81 immediately caught the implication in his words. Is she injured? He admitted that her spiritual power was severely lacking, indicating she had internal injuries. Jia Lam's footsteps suddenly halted, and she turned back to softly say thank you, then reassured them at the dark extreme area of the graveyard. The surroundings were gloomy as they ventured deeper. The main character noticed something below a skeleton. This is the graveyard. Jia Lam quickly interrupted. Here it is, this is the graveyard. She pointed to a glowing flower in the distance. Look, that's the 7 withered flowers. Without saying a word, they continued to advance. Surrounding the flower were countless dark beings guarding it. Jia Lam seemed to have lost her sanity, unconsciously raising her hand forward, finally meeting you again. The main character quickly sensed something was wrong. He conjured a fireball with one hand and shouted, "Get a grip." He threw the fireball forcefully toward Jia Lam, feeling the power radiating from his attack. Jia Lam was stunned, realizing it also contained the rare yin-yang attribute. She quickly used her hand to slash a path to block his attack, then stared at him, unsure of what he was thinking. At that moment, the spirits behind her suddenly vanished, making her think she wasn't fully prepared. Lam Yi and To Tan-Huynh also rushed over. Lam Yi anxiously asked, "Sister Jia Lam, are you okay?" To Tan-Huynh chimed in, "She's severely affected by the dark attribute. We should stay here together." After a moment of thought, Jia Lam suddenly said, "Let 7 withered flowers go. That's enough." The male lead, hearing this, slowly approached. 7 withered flowers walked past the 3 of them, and suddenly a tremor erupted from the ground. A fox demon unexpectedly lunged out from the ground, pouncing on him. It opened its wide mouth, and the souls it had devoured screamed in despair. So hungry, so hungry, so hungry. Seeing this, he remained calm, gathering energy in his hand and softly murmuring, "Divine thunder." Following that, a series of lightning bullets shot through the fox demon. It merely let out a painful cry, not suffering any serious harm. The male lead wondered just how many abnormalities it had consumed. Having just transformed into an S-level being, he needed to deal with it quickly. After obtaining 7 withered flowers, he thought about the time for sealing the dark tide, which was running out. With that in mind, a stream of purple energy formed in his palm. He unleashed the Infinite Shadow Realm skill, creating a circle that enveloped him and the fox demon. Within the circle, it collapsed, and at that moment, each soul began to wrap around and tightly grip its body. It trembled slightly, crying out in pain. Then a system notification appeared stating that the fox demon had been affected by the dark attributes specifically in the Infinite Shadow Realm. The S-level half-demon fox had downgraded to B-level upon seeing the system notification, and the fox demon was now bound and collapsed before him. The male lead thought that the foundation of cultivation in the Extreme Shadow area wasn't very solid. With that thought, he used the fire attribute to create a fire sword and swung it towards it, causing an explosion. He softly said, "It's over." Outside, Tutanhuin wondered, "What is this? I can sense the dark attribute." But there was something different. Lam Yi replied, "That's right. I can't feel that cold, eerie, and disgusting aura." At that moment, Jia Lam stepped forward, her expression serious. Because this is the domain of Huangdi. He has created his own realm. Thinking of this, she couldn't help but think of her teacher. She silently thought that creating a domain using spiritual power was extremely difficult. Aside from her teacher, there were at most 3 people globally who possessed this ability. But at that time, it was predicted that the capital would soon face a catastrophic disaster. The teacher deployed the domain to suppress, resulting in the male lead leaving the domain and waving friendly at them, saying, "The graveyard behind us probably won't cause any more trouble." Then he stepped closer to 7 withered flowers. He gently lifted it up until the flower was in his hand. Only then could he breathe a sigh of relief. Suddenly, Jia Lam's eyes widened in surprise as he handed 7 withered flowers to her. The male lead turned to everyone and said, "We need to retreat immediately. The dark tide could happen at any moment." With that, he shifted his gaze elsewhere. "Moreover, we still have a burden." She smiled gently, thanking the male lead. They immediately set off, not daring to delay for even a second. Suddenly, she called him back. "Thank you so much. Old Ngo is in danger because of you." He just looked at her without responding as they stood before the exit, all feeling joyful and excited. "We survived and returned," Lam Yi replied. "Finally, we can see the sun outside." Everyone was welcoming them, eagerly anticipating seeing 7 withered flowers as one by one they stepped out of the gate. A flurry of inquiries rushed in. Number 81 looked around at the crowd, waiting, surprised. Tranlam Yi noticed something and exclaimed, "This is the car of the spirit army, renowned throughout the lower kingdom. Everyone knows about it." Number 81 gradually regretted mocking Jia Lam as they transitioned to a bustling area in the spirit army, the top of the 10 military districts in the lower kingdom. A vial containing 7 withered flowers was being transferred. The recipient was none other than the high-ranking leader of the spirit army. In the next moment, all the soldiers around immediately showed their respect and gratitude to the male lead. Even he expressed his thanks to Jia Lam. The vehicle quickly departed. After that, while riding with Jia Lam, the male lead curiously asked, "Are you from the spirit army?" She replied, "Yes, your performance has spread throughout the military district. Soon you'll be famous. I must admit, your strength can overpower the strongest squad in the military district, and your potential is immense." Jia Lam then changed her tone, enticing the male lead with an invitation, but he seemed uninterested and changed the subject. Now the world is changing. What the country values most or fears the most is the dark attribute anomaly. The number of anomalies is rapidly increasing. In the future, the situation will become even more serious, and their range of influence is constantly expanding, which could lead to catastrophic consequences at any time. Therefore, we must spare no effort in building a forbidden zone to prevent spiritual anomalies, which are strictly monitored everywhere. I tell you this because I feel that an outstanding cultivator like you deserves to know about these situations. The male lead listened to the entire story and replied, "I understand. If I encounter an anomaly in the future, even if it's a stranger, well, I won't just stand by and watch." I saw the way she looked at the main guy, and then her expression softened. After that, Jia Lam handed him a badge and said, "It's a pleasure to meet you, Fuang. Please take this badge. With this token, you can freely enter any restricted area to cultivate, and the gateway to the spiritual battle zone will be open for you at any time. There's one more thing. Do you want to visit Old Man Ngo?" The male lead suspiciously asked her because that was Master Kim Kang, and Elder Lam confirmed that he was my mentor. "I think you should meet him." Hearing this, he put the token into his pocket, and then something appeared in his hand. Lightning flickered, saying that adding one more friend means one more path. "I will accompany you on this trip, so consider this a gift between friends." Saying that, the lightning shot out from the male lead's hand, enveloping her body. He explained, "I think I can cleanse the remaining poison in your body." She felt her body gradually getting better. Elder Lam just realized that the lightning attribute had healing properties. Not only that, the wounds from the Blackbone invasion were healing, and her damaged organs seemed to have recovered as before. The blood vessels in her body were being arranged and purified, but Elder Lam looked extremely satisfied at this moment. All the toxins in her body had been completely eliminated. After a while of treatment, the male lead asked how she felt. Elder Lam replied, "I'm doing very well. All the dark attributes in my body have been completely eradicated." Nearby, an ambulance was treating a seriously injured patient. The Tan Huin, who was standing close by, also noticed the two of them. Then she approached and asked, "Aren't you two leaving yet?" "Wait, why do I feel Elder Lam's wounds?" She answered her question, and Elder Lam replied, "That's right. The dark attributes in my body have been completely cleansed by the lightning attribute." Hearing this, Tu Tanhuin became interested and wanted to get a closer look at the male lead. Then she called everyone from the medical team over. After that, she turned to the male lead with sparkling eyes, hoping to ask him to help treat the pioneers who had been infected with the dark attributes. Saying this, she lowered her head to show her sincerity in facing him. The male lead agreed and then displayed his pure lightning attribute. Seeing the lightning generated from him, one of the medical staff doubted whether the pure lightning attribute could really break the dark attributes. Elder Lam stepped in to explain, "Just now, Fungdik directly transferred the dark attributes on me, which were then eradicated. So we just need Fungdik to shake hands with the injured practitioners." I remember there was one person in a coma who was also a creation of the spirit realm, right? Hearing this, Tu Tanhuin responded, "Not all creations of the spirit realm can withstand such spiritual energy." The medical staff also added, "The injured person was severely wounded. According to my estimate to treat him, the necessary lightning energy is about 10 times more than yours. Moreover, just waking him up would be a great achievement. It's impossible to fully recover." Without further ado, the male lead asked the medical staff how they wanted to store the spiritual energy. They led him close to the ambulance and guided him to place his hand on a machine. From afar, Lam Yi was watching the male lead, pondering how Elder Lam turned out to be a high-ranking member of the spiritual battle zone, and yet he managed to make the spiritual battle zone famous and grant special privileges. Elder Lam coldly even took the initiative to befriend him, and just now I saw her. Elder Lam even handed her token over to him. At this moment, Nam Trin also noticed her gaze. He turned to look at number 81 and Lam Yai Wai, asking, "How are you two?" She replied, "We have everything arranged, and next 81, and I want to train a bit more. We can't always rely on you, otherwise we won't make any progress." Hearing this, he didn't think much and agreed, saying that the male lead looked at her with gentle eyes, silently praising, "You've grown up." After the energy transfer was completed, Tu Tanhuin waved goodbye to Elder Lam and the male lead. Then they got into the car to return. Sitting in the car, she angrily scolded because the male lead had been taken away by the spiritual battle zone. But then she reminded herself that the organization of the Spirit Alliance was still too chaotic at the headquarters and branches, with many managers being more fake than high-ranking military officers, and the elite teams seemed disjointed. Not to mention the willingness to lower themselves to befriend Fungdik or some stubborn people who didn't come to cause trouble was already a stroke of luck. Transitioning to the highest level hospital room in the spiritual battle zone, the male lead looked at an old man lying on the bed, asking, "Is this old man Ngo?" Elder Lam replied, "Yes, it's quite strange, isn't it? A powerful figure in the Kim Kang realm is just a frail old man. His complexion was even worse before. He had used up 7 types of medicine but still hasn't woken up." After hearing this, the male lead curiously asked what happened to him. She recounted the previous events when the natural disaster of dark attributes struck the city, causing abnormal phenomena. To prevent the dark attributes from affecting the city, he used his own body to seal the remnants. We all used a special method to transfer spiritual energy to him. We assessed that this unusual natural disaster was above levels. Although the dark waves we encountered were already at level S and terrifying, the damage from this disaster was many times stronger than the dark waves. As she spoke, she lowered her head in despair. Once it appeared, it could destroy the entire city, and even the surrounding towns would be affected and wiped out, altering the very essence of the city in an extraordinary way. If it were to be destroyed, the entire nation would fall into chaos. The teacher had used his domain to forcibly seal this unusual S-class threat, but he never expected that we would have to combine our powers to deal with this colossal disaster. It was even more terrifying than we had anticipated. The teacher had been swallowed by the dark attribute. If he weren't the Vajra Master, he would have turned to dust right then and there, even becoming nourishment for this anomaly. After hearing the whole story, the male lead couldn't help but sigh. He truly was a great practitioner. He couldn't help but remember the practitioners from his past life, who had stood in front of him, helping him survive until the end. Perhaps in his past life, he had already sacrificed himself at this moment. Thinking of this, he extended his palm towards the teacher, then tried to help him reduce the dark attribute within his body. Seeing this, she was a bit doubtful, but then thought about the male lead's actions in the secret realm. She fell silent, and then no longer refused, reminding him to be careful. This dark attribute was even scarier than the dark waves. Otherwise, after using the 7 withering flowers, the teacher wouldn't have recovered so slowly. He replied, "I know, I can feel how strong the darkness is here." Even though it was restrained by the purifying force of the 7 withering flowers, it still brought a tremendous sense of pressure to him. Just then, a cloud of black smoke suddenly emanated from his body, enveloping the entire room. Old Lam was stunned upon seeing this. He quickly reminded the male lead to be cautious. It was starting to affect him. At that moment, he closed his eyes and a golden mist enveloped his body. After a while, he opened his eyes, his expression serious as he looked at the scene before him. The male lead was horrified to find his spirit being pulled back into the past. That mysterious creature spoke, asking who the male lead was. He was momentarily stunned, never expecting an illusion to appear here, and coldly replied, "Just know that I'm here to eliminate you." At the same time, using its power, it shot a stream of dark energy at him. He gasped in shock but quickly reacted, activating the Golden Yang breathing technique to easily dodge the attack. The male lead had to marvel at the bizarre strength. It was no weaker than the divine thunder he had absorbed from the Jade Emperor's Dragon Peak. Suddenly he glanced around. There were countless of them, all the bizarre creatures charging straight at the male lead, A blazing red flame appeared in his hand. Faced with such a dangerous enemy, the male lead showed no fear, charging straight ahead with determination in his eyes. In the blink of an eye, he slashed through the darkness, inflicting a fatal wound on it. A moment later, it had fully recovered and immediately launched 2 more attacks. It seemed to have weakened significantly, and the male lead hurriedly dodged the attacks, escaping onto the rooftops. In an instant, he unleashed the infinite underworld, a dark orb gathering in the male lead's hand, sucking in all the dark energy. The bizarre creature gaped, "You're not human." His expression immediately turned unpleasant as he sternly commanded, "Open." In a flash, a massive black hole appeared and the bizarre creature vanished. However, the sky still retained a murky aura. It seemed to be the lingering consciousness of the dark anomaly. The male lead felt a rising fear of the impending disaster. He couldn't help but recall the terrifying appearance of the bizarre creatures. The male lead faced a multitude of them alone. He sighed, needing to find a way to escape from here. The scene shifted, and at this moment his expression was stunned as he swung the spatula into thin air. Yet he pulled out a stream of dark energy, which instantly dissipated after that strike. A second later, he focused on chanting the 9-dragon fire sealing technique, binding the dark energy. Old Lamb stood beside him, stunned. This was the dark attribute within Oldengo's body, the male lead explained. It was the remnants of the anomalous talent. Although still quite strong, its influence was no longer significant. Oldengo's complexion visibly improved. Old Lamb gratefully thanked him repeatedly. The male lead humbly declined, saying he couldn't completely eliminate the dark attribute from him. He tightly grasped the object in his hand, which immediately shattered and blended into the air. At this moment, the male lead felt relieved, but suddenly remembered the situation in the illusion, turning to warn Old Lamb to be ready at any moment. Her expression darkened as she solemnly mentioned the rumors. The male lead, confused, asked again about the phenomena of the anomalous spiritual energy fluctuations, being compiled and recorded in a very strict management ledger. Those rumors, with the strength of the lower realm, seemed unable to withstand. In the first year of energy recovery, however, no one believed it. Suddenly his face turned pale, and his tone dripped with sarcasm regarding the monitoring of the fluctuations of anomalous spiritual energy. The male lead wondered if his own fate would also change the future. Nevertheless, he placed a hand on Old Lamb's shoulder, comforting her not to think too much. Perhaps Old Ngo would wake up soon. "Don't worry if the disaster strikes again. I will definitely stand with you," he said, then reassured himself that this disaster, whether early or late, would erupt. This time, he had to change everything. "Don't worry if disaster strikes again. I will definitely stand by you." He thought to himself that this disaster, whether it comes sooner or later, will happen. This time I have to change everything. It's late at night in an apartment, and the main character is sitting in meditation, thinking that he's about to break through to the second star of the spirit realm. The recovery of spiritual energy is being scheduled, and even though I possess dark attribute abilities, it's still not enough. However, the anomalies in the illusion realm, despite being weakened, still struggle to conceal their true power. Suddenly, the flower on the table sways, drawing his attention as he approaches it, teasing, "Not bringing you along was my loss. It's inconvenient to carry you with me." He then lifts the flower pot, saying, "All right, I only regret not having the chance for you to showcase your upgrade potential. Let's take you out for a stroll." The main character, carrying the flower pot, chats to himself as he walks. The Plant Research Institute of Linkyep is quite competent, even in the early stages of spiritual energy recovery. The self-regulating ability of nature has become very powerful, but only for a brief moment. The trees that were once burned have recovered significantly, and there's even a new type of grafted plant. Saying this, he places the flower pot down on a patch of grass, mentioning that he needs to thank the Little Toe Society tomorrow. Occasionally, absorbing a little is fine, but it can't be too casual. After planting it in the ground, the flower seems to come back to life, its roots spreading everywhere, and the nearby plants look withered after being absorbed by the flower. He thinks, "All right," then lifts the flower out of the ground, confusing it, and says, "All right, let's change places to absorb." Among the evolved beings of the plant system, I wonder what rank you could achieve. The anomalies of the wild attributes could at least be considered A grade. There are quite a few animals in this mountain. But today not a single one is in sight, probably because they fear the wild power emanating from you. Just then, a howl suddenly echoes from nearby, and the main character's expression turns serious. It's a pack of wolves. He sees the nearby pack of wolves, their eyes suddenly glowing red, the alpha wolf even bulging with muscles. He's a bit startled. The pack is about to evolve. The main character looks at the intelligent wolves and mutters, "So this is the Wolf King, huh?" It seems like it's about to complete its evolution. After fully evolving, the Wolf King roars, and the main character raises his hand to shield the spirit flower pod, speculating that this spiritual energy might be about to become an A-grade anomaly. After evolving, the Wolf King has transitioned from the wood attribute of forest animals to the poison attribute, carrying a strong corrosive nature. This poison attribute evolved because it absorbed dark attributes. It seems that the activities of dark attributes are increasing to the point where the Wolf King has suddenly upgraded to 2 attributes, but it's still just A-grade anomaly power. He then pulls the spirit flower out of the pot and declares, "Now let's deal with them." Although they're just A-grade anomalies, the problem is that the pack is very large and the foot of the mountain is an urban area. If they enter the city, the consequences will be severe. Well then, let's get started. I want to see how much damage I can inflict without using any other powers relying solely on the wild strength. Meanwhile, down the mountain, a group of strangers is observing. A long-haired man says, "The Wolf King has evolved successfully. How severe is the level of pollution?" The team leader looks at his watch and reports 90. Upon hearing this, he freezes. 90. The team leader presses a button on the watch and adds, "Not only that, it's still increasing. The Wolf King, with its wood attribute, has at least reached the 3rd star of the Ghost Realm, and it might even be at the 1st star of the Spirit Realm. Why is there so much?" The long-haired man exclaims in shock, "But at this rate, our manpower isn't enough. We can't fight them. Even you just broke through to the 3rd star of the Ghost Realm, right?" Suddenly, a massive wave of dark power erupts from the mountain's peak, and everyone gasps. The dark attribute has appeared again. What's going on? No wonder the pollution level is so high. The team leader realizes the cause and shouts, "I understand now." The reason for the high pollution level is that the Wolf King has evolved into 2 attributes. Such occurrences in anomalies are extremely rare, but even if we can't fight them, we must stop these wild beasts. Once they successfully evolve, the area at the foot of the mountain will be devastated. The nature of wild beasts is inherently brutal, and now with the infusion of spiritual power for evolution, they will become even more terrifying. I need to quickly inform Lin Hip to request assistance. Just then, the ground suddenly shook violently, and everyone panicked, wondering if it was an earthquake. How could the evolved wolf pack cause an earthquake? Something strange is happening. The number on the captain's watch quickly rose to 1,000, and the group at the foot of the mountain immediately realized, "Oh no, is this the power of the wilderness here? We need to retreat to a safe area no matter what." The long-haired man turned back to look and asked, "Is it the vines that disappeared before?" Without any warning, the captain hurriedly urged everyone to move quickly and evacuate all nearby residents. Suddenly, another member stopped him, saying, "Wait, Captain, the power of the wilderness isn't like that." "What is this?" The captain asked if the power of the wilderness had hidden deep in the mountains. The long-haired man emphasized, "Yes, it's strange. The feeling of danger has vanished. Should we still report this?" The roots of the spirit flower grew longer, quickly blooming hundreds of small buds. Moments later, all the flowers exploded, releasing a powerful surge of wilderness energy. The captain curiously wondered, is this the flower returning to the south? The spirit flower created a sea of flowers surrounding the Wolf King, who continued to growl and lash out, with its claws tearing apart the petals. It indicated that this sea of spirit flowers would not stop growing until it drained all the energy from the pack. You still have protective spiritual energy to struggle. But what about them? The strange beasts around were crying out in despair, tightly bound by the vines, trembling and moaning. Soon they were drained of their life force, leaving only skeletons after the spirit flower absorbed all the vitality from the wolf pack. Its vines began to turn red, and the Wolf King, furious, opened its mouth to spit out a blue beam, attacking the southern area with all its might. However, his entire body was protected by the sturdy roots of the spirit flower. As the roots slowly retracted, he calmly called out, "It's useless." Don't you realize that the wilderness attribute of the spirit flower has deeply rooted itself in the ground beneath this mountainous forest? The sea of flowers flowed across the sky, taken from the mountains for the mountains. But even if you've leveled up and opened your mind, you probably don't know the saying that wild grass can't be blown away by the wind, right? Not bad, you can still see the position of the flower. The small flower people have discovered you. What should we do now? The Wolf King gritted its teeth and charged straight at the spirit flower. The spirit flower slowly changed size, and as the Wolf King lunged for it, it was unfortunately caught tightly by the giant petals. The Wolf King struggled with all its might, but it was useless. The spirit flower continued to corrode the Wolf King, while the protagonist calmly observed and wondered if he should really let the dark attribute consume him. A sticky petal split apart, trapping the poor beast that was howling in agony, and then accidentally swallowed it whole. The protagonist watched the spirit flower decompose the Wolf King and reflected that the power of the wilderness was truly overwhelming. What kind of ability is this? I never expected that after implanting the wilderness attribute into the spirit flower, it wouldn't need any further adjustments from me. It formed its own unique method. He indicated that once trapped in the sea of flowers, no anomaly could escape. Even if the spirit flower was continuously destroyed, it could still regenerate, using its endless wilderness power to turn everything into white bones. This is called the Endless Spirit Sea, and the system confirmed that the spirit flower had successfully been implanted with the wilderness attribute. The Endless Spirit Sea, a flower blazing with fiery red, the protagonist observed every move of the spirit flower, and then noticed something unusual. He looked at how the spirit flower absorbed the spiritual energy of heaven and earth and said to it, "Little flower, you're about to evolve." Everyone in the observation room was excitedly discovering an A-level pollution anomaly with 2 different streams of spiritual energy in the polluted area. Besides the Wolf King leveling up, the other one was reported to be where Captain Toe was in charge. He was puzzled, but the demolition squad had already stopped the wolf pack. At that moment, the intercom in the captain's ear transmitted a voice reporting that the wolf pack's mutation had suddenly erupted with powerful wilderness energy, annihilating the A-level anomaly of the wolf pack. But it didn't chase us, it went into a cave. Now, numerous anomalies are appearing in the mountains and the flowers are blooming, but we can't get close. We don't know if this power will affect the surroundings. If this anomaly erupts, it will be more terrifying than the previous ones in the central region. Should we send people for support? The cultivators present here would surely be wiped out in an instant. He replied, if that's the case, we'll send 2 more elite teams. Tan Huyin, standing beside him, thought to himself that it must be Hao Sun. He always felt that this time it was him. Then she spoke up. I think the one emitting the wilderness power this time is probably the translator. He is in this position, and he can handle everything alone. The protagonist said loudly. Sure enough, you scooped up the Ice King, and now it's about to evolve with a second attribute, each petal like a blazing red flame dancing. He excitedly continued, it's a fire attribute, that's what it is. Just swallowing it whole can lead to your evolution. Leveling up your cultivation seems easy, huh? The spirit flower shrank down to fit in the palm of his hand. The protagonist's system announced that the spirit flower had scooped up the wolf pack, along with the mutated Ice King. It has completed its evolution into the wildfire spirit flower of A rank with the attribute of wildfire. After evolving, it has a strong desire to absorb spiritual energy, which can be placed into the infinite netherrealm for nurturing. Reading halfway, he was surprised and murmured, infinite netherrealm. Why didn't I think it could live in there? In the infinite netherrealm, there are many unusual dark attributes and land environments. If the spirit flower absorbs them, it could evolve into a dark attribute. Then the protagonist placed it into the infinite netherrealm, and suddenly a lightning bolt streaked across the sky. It startled him. The protagonist glanced over and predicted, is it about to break through? Creating a 2-star spiritual realm, he immediately sat in meditation in mid-air waves of power enveloping him. The protagonist thought to himself, I find it easier to channel energy. The spiritual energy of heaven and earth seems to be made for me. At this moment, Huang 6 easily spotted the protagonist. He frowned, assessing the legendary heavenly fire blade, creating a 2-star spiritual realm. This is exciting. Let me show you my coffin. I want everyone to know I'm the #1 fire attribute cultivator. Feeling the danger, he warily opened his eyes and saw a flame rushing toward him, thinking to himself, so it's a fire attribute cultivator. He quickly concentrated his power into one hand, and next the protagonist managed to block the entire attack. He silently assessed, finally it has come. Where were you hiding before? Not even concealing your spiritual energy. A wild one breaking through the spiritual realm, unorganized, just loves to fight. Huang 6 stepped out from the flames and spoke, you're interesting. I see you have a powerful spiritual pressure. How did you dodge my fire phoenix flame just now? But the protagonist disdainfully ignored him, continuing, I forgot to introduce myself. My name is Huang 6. You'll remember me soon enough. He calmly raised his hand to the sky, calling upon the god of thunder. Huang 6 was still charging ahead when a blinding light appeared above the protagonist's head. He halted, thinking, what the hell? But at this point, he had to rely on faith and hope to dodge. Huang 6 took the full brunt of the attack, his body feeling like it dissolved into thin air. Finally, he coughed up a mouthful of white smoke, his clothes in tatters, kneeling on the ground. Huang 6 was bewildered, wondering, who am I? Where's this? He thought he was also a fire attribute cultivator. Then he trembled, kneeling on the ground, gasping for breath. The protagonist calmly approached his sharp gaze, assessing him from head to toe. Next, he grabbed Huang 6's head and gently lifted it, then slammed his face down into the ground. Now he finally spoke. Just now I was deaf. What did you say your name was? At this moment, Huang 6 was too busy eating dirt to respond. In Huang 6's mind, chaos reigned. In an instant, he realized he had created a 1-star spiritual realm. He had always been the fastest among all cultivators, not to mention his fire attribute. Ultimate skill was the rarest and most advanced. His immense power made him a master among masters. Everyone had to bow down and flatter him. Newly granted benefits during the awakening of spiritual energy. Seeing that he wasn't responding, the protagonist clicked his tongue, exerting more strength, along with the power of lightning, causing Huang 6 to scream in pain and helplessness. This made him even more terrified. Not only fire, but also lightning. He never expected to be pressured to the point he couldn't stand. The protagonist contemptuously said, is that all? Just as kids these days are so confident. Huang 6 couldn't speak, only thinking that this guy clearly hadn't broken through to create a 2-star spiritual realm. He felt like he was 2, no 3 realms behind him. I'm about to kick the bucket. Huang 6 really has to meet his end now. Huang 6 panicked, pleading with the protagonist not to kill him, but what met his eyes was the cold face of the protagonist. Suddenly he changed his tone, advising him not to casually use his powers against others. If you have free time, you should go clean up the anomalies causing chaos. Hearing this, Huang 6 was furious, and the protagonist even clicked his tongue, giving him a very annoying look. Despite that, Huang 6 had to endure because he had incredibly strong spiritual power. To the point where he began to doubt his own abilities. In the city of dazzling lights, Huang 6 slowly walked into the room, his expression devoid of life. His teammates showed no sympathy and instead mocked him. Especially the red-haired guy who started lecturing Huang 6 as soon as he saw him enter. You're so belligerent. If you can't tell friend from foe, you'll only invite disaster. Another guy suddenly noticed that Huang 6's usual bravado was missing today. He looked at him with disdain, sitting down on the chair, quickly guessing that something had happened. The black-haired youth, unafraid of death, kept rambling on. The black-haired guy had a hunch about what had happened today when Kwang Six challenged the legendary Heavenly Fireblade. What on earth happened? Kwang Six shamefully recounted how he was taken down in an instant, while the black-haired youth believed that beauty was worth dying for. Kwang Six, with tears streaming down his face, hurriedly asked for more details, only to be caught off guard by the male lead and Cho without any chance to escape. Now all he could feel was regret and self-blame. The red-haired one was also very curious about the identity of the person who defeated a high-level genius like Kwang Six. He paled as he recounted how, in an instant, my proudest move, the Fire Phoenix, was shattered by his thunder. The black-haired one frowned and asked if he might have mistaken his opponent unless it was someone from the high-level battle zone. Who could possibly match him? The red-haired one also frowned, speculating that the male lead with that kind of power might not even be a mere cultivator. This question directly triggered an explosion from Kwang Six. How could I possibly be mistaken? It's definitely him. If you haven't experienced it, you wouldn't understand. He's a monster with the power of thunder and lightning. It felt like all the heavenly thunder was gathering around me, waiting to explode right there. His assertion made the other two go pale. My instincts told me it was him. He was the cultivator who created the scene of fire and lightning at a high level. His lightning power was indeed stronger than my fire. I don't know how many times he must have hidden his true strength. At the very least, he must have created a 3-star spirit realm. The two of them were extremely confused, and the black-haired one feared that this person would become a nightmare for all cultivators. The 3 cultivators couldn't help but marvel at the power and explosion. At that moment, Kwang Six suddenly had an idea, wondering if he should secretly learn from it. Meanwhile, the male lead was training alone in a strange room. It was odd. Just earlier, he was on the verge of a breakthrough, but now that feeling had vanished. It wasn't because of himself. He frowned, guessing it was due to external factors. The male lead walked around the house seriously. Assessing the state of the spiritual energy, he suddenly recalled some words from before. The Energy Monitoring Association would compile the fluctuations in spiritual energy that both sides collected. This data would be recorded and strictly managed to prevent contamination from external events. It sounded fine, but the reasoning showed that with the current reserves of the lower nation, it would be difficult to surpass the threshold. In the first year of the spiritual energy recovery period, looking at the stormy sky, the male lead secretly rejoiced, thinking that something big was about to happen. The recovery of spiritual energy was going to occur sooner in the city where I was. He intended to call Jia Lam to check on the situation with the military, but he couldn't get in touch at all. The male lead frowned, guessing that the people over there had been forced to cut off communication. Just then, Totan Huin suddenly called. When the male lead answered, he could only hear fragmented sounds asking for support. He quietly asked if many anomalies had appeared in the city, but the other side kept reporting that there was a very serious problem. The male lead insisted on asking further, but received no response. At that moment, a bat suddenly swooped in, causing the window glass to shatter. He warily glanced in that direction. In a short time, that monster had completely removed the obstacles and charged in fiercely. The male lead, unfazed, assessed it, thinking it didn't know its own strength. His finger sparked with lightning as he jumped up high. Using that power to pierce through the monster's body, he finished it off, only to see Lam Ey rushing in, panicking to report the appearance of the anomalous bat. But when she saw the door smashed, she changed her tone and asked what had happened. Lam Ey quickly realized the rampage of the monster in recent times. The male lead agreed with her. It was very likely. If the situation remained stable, it would still be within his control. The worst-case scenario was that a huge upheaval would occur here, as the anomalies were hiding in the shadows, not rampaging through the bustling streets, especially not directly attacking the home of a cultivator. Knowing that difficulties were ahead, he told YY to quickly contact the cultivators. The male lead suddenly stepped up onto the table, seriously assigning the responsibility of protecting the house to YY while he was outside. The sky was rumbling with thunder. He reported sternly that the signal had been affected, making it hard to hear the specific location. If a disaster really occurred, we would have to handle it ourselves. One person was still stunned by the situation. He preferred to believe that this was due to equipment malfunction. Totan Huyen also hoped it was just a user's panic. She seriously spoke into the communication device, inquiring about the patrol situation of the teams. Suddenly, a scream echoed directly into the ears of those present. Totan Huyen panicked and shouted into the device, reporting the presence of anomalous clusters due to natural disasters. The government quickly announced advising citizens to stay at home and not go outside. In this scene, no one could hide their panic, but at that moment, 2 people were rushing down the street. However, they soon realized something was amiss. The red-haired one anxiously handed over the decision-making power to Kwang Six about whether to stay or go. While he was still contemplating, a mutated bat suddenly charged at him. Kwang Six quickly unleashed his power to eliminate it. While defeating the mutated bat, he couldn't help but notice its unusual ferocity. As the sparks faded, the bat was still alive. Kwang Six realized it had the ability to regenerate. Feeling alarmed about this, he hurriedly decided to head home. A few hours earlier at the association, someone suggested inviting the highest-ranking staff from Nin Hiep and the translator for a close exchange. Suddenly, the connection screen shifted to an unusual wave, and a frantic person reported back. A strange phenomenon of level A is about to hit the city center. Seeing that, To Tan-Huynh hurriedly ordered Team 5 to investigate the person, and also reported that the forecast showed the strange phenomenon approaching was at level S. On the screen, everyone could see a giant bat rushing towards him, and he was immediately taken down by it. At this moment, there wasn't a single person in the military zone. Hundreds of mutated bats broke the glass and flew out. One person rushed forward, swung, and subdued them. Jia Lam coldly glared, and in an instant, countless mutated bats were taken down. That was Jia Lam's strange spiritual power, capable of transforming spiritual energy into any form and enhancing it to unleash 200% of its power. She realized that these persistent mutated creatures seemed to be trying to stop her. At the same time, someone had arrived to assist, but before her powerful abilities, he couldn't help but be in awe. The serious blonde asked for the next order from Jia Lam. She frowned and reported that the signal had been disrupted by the anomaly. The disruption position had lost its effectiveness, and it seemed that other military zones were experiencing similar situations. Looking at the swarm of flying monsters, she commanded sternly that our mission now is to defend this place and not let them breach the restricted area. The rest follow me to break through the encirclement and regroup with other military zones. Jia Lam realized in horror that the ultimate goal of the anomaly was the city. At this moment, the people there were still completely unaware of the situation. Even though it was raining, a female blogger still wanted to get a raincoat and continue filming. However, while she was excitedly talking about her previous achievements, her friend next to her couldn't help but tremble. The 7 female bloggers also horrifiedly realized something was wrong. She screamed in fear when she saw her friend being bitten by a mutated bat. The female blogger hurriedly ran while yelling for help, but she was immediately caught by a mutated bat. With a stroke of luck, she could win all 10 prizes from this slot and was saved once again. After taking down that bat, someone slowly landed on the ground. To Tan-Huynh reached out to help her up, saying, "My teammate will take you home." While she was instructing the others, someone panicked and reported that the level C anomalies were increasing, and there was a trend of evolution. To Tan-Huynh quickly ordered everyone to a safe place and then to regroup with her. At this moment, the male lead was moving alone between the buildings. He quickly landed on a high-rise building, observing the bats in front of him. The male lead realized they had evolved nearly to the level of demon-like abilities. He decisively created a spark and then swung his hand in a circle through the air. That bat surprisingly managed to dodge. The male lead was astonished by this anomaly. The swarm of bats continued to breed and evolve, appearing to be nearly indestructible. They often gathered in flocks where people were concentrated. It was as if they appeared simultaneously in countless similar areas capable of forming disasters. Therefore, finding the members of the Linghiep would still take some time, so he decided to deal with each matter slowly. The male lead waved his hand to create an infinite shadow realm, wanting to turn that swarm into nourishment for Linghua. However, he's still secretly worried about the safety of YI and the others, because if this continued, survival would be very difficult. 10 minutes later, in To Tan-Huynh area, she irritably realized that the bats were endless. At this rate, her spiritual energy would run out. Just then, To Tan-Huynh suddenly heard a cry for help from a nearby building. She immediately rushed there. The monsters had begun to attack a crowd of people in the buildings. The manpower dispersed to rescue people was still insufficient. To Tan-Huynh swung her hand to eliminate the bats in front of her, but then she was surrounded by another group. To Tan-Huynh panicked, realizing that at this rate, a strange king would soon emerge. The city was gradually falling into chaos. The level of this anomaly was no less than a natural disaster that almost occurred in the metropolis. Moreover, the worst part was, it seemed that no one could stop this from happening, whether it was Lin Heap or the military. No one could completely salvage the situation or reverse this deadly scenario. The entire city was about to be destroyed in an instant. Voices echoed. The team of Lin Hanjia in Zone A is exchanging lives for lives, detonating spiritual energy. The team of Tianjia in Zone B is attracting mutated beasts and is surrounded. The latest warning detected anomalies with dark attributes, and the predictive capabilities have reached the standard level. Report back. Both the Lin Hanjia and our staff suffered heavy casualties, but the number of bats was too large, and the replenishment speed exceeded our current defense level. The president ordered that Emergency Plan S had been activated. However, the Lin Hanjia in other areas, despite their efforts to coordinate, could not keep up. The person next to him hesitated. The city had been surrounded by a thick layer of black fog, and rescue from the military and other areas could not enter. We have become an isolated city. He ordered, "It's time for the city to survive. As a Lin Hanjia, I am willing to live and die with everyone in this city. We are the people of this city. If the anomaly wants to destroy it, then it must first overcome our protective barrier. Let's try to contact headquarters and send a code. If we cannot prevent the disaster from spreading the dark attributes, we will immediately initiate a destructive attack." At this moment, To Tan-Huynh was enveloped in a sphere because she was anxious and her spiritual energy was completely insufficient. If this continued, To Tan-Huynh used all her remaining strength to release energy. The flashes of light pierced through the space. A mutated monster was violently advancing towards her. To Tan-Huynh shouted, "No way, this is the third spirit creation." She was frustrated. Her spiritual energy was almost completely depleted. Tan Huynh quickly sustained serious injuries, blood spewing from her mouth as she was thrown away by the monster. Her body was falling, and Tan Huyn's eyes, closing and opening helplessly, could only do this, and then she continued to unleash her magic, telling herself, "Even if I die, I must." Suddenly Tan Huynh saw a large spark shooting up from below. She fell into a sea of flames, her expression one of astonishment. Tan Huynh saw Phuong Dic standing to protect her. "Call the boss." He had a strange look in his eyes, embodying the powers of water and fire. Phuong Dic, with a graceful form, lunged forward using the technique of Thunderstrike. The monster fell, not stopping its gigantic mouth, waiting for him to fly closer. Phuong Dic quickly unleashed a powerful technique, 100 forgings, followed by a combination of strength with internal explosive force as he landed, complaining. "Sorry for finding you. It's quite troublesome. There are too many identical anomalies on the way." Tan Huynh trembled and replied, "Be careful, they will regenerate." Phuong Dic looked at them calmly. "Of course, I know he creates dark orbs. Don't worry, I'm a reliable person." But Phuong Dic used Infinite Shadow Realm to deploy his spiritual power, assuring her that he could do it. She blinked, pondering, "Right, how could I forget that the city has Phuong Dic, this unparalleled practitioner?" At this moment, he was continuously unleashing magical power. A gigantic dark orb was created in midair. Phuong Dic asked, "Are you okay?" She replied, "I'm fine, thank you for saving me. I still have some hemostatic medicine on me that can help me recover." Phuong Dic's gaze changed as if he realized something. He touched Tan Huynh, turning her to stone. "Let me help you clear the remnants of the dark attributes. If there's time, please bandage your wounds." "Yes," she replied, stunned. As expected of a high-level thunder god attribute, my pain has significantly reduced, and the healing speed is even faster than the hemostatic medicine from the research department. The monitoring spirit exclaimed in panic, "Look, the number of anomalies is decreasing. Could it be that we have successfully broken through the encirclement?" He, standing behind, spoke up. "No, all the rescuing practitioners around the city have been attacked and lost contact. We still can't enter the city. Look at the number of anomalies outside the city. It's not decreasing at all. Inside the city, the number of practitioners is decreasing day by day. No team has been able to restore contact. Perhaps the Anomaly King is about to appear, which is why the number of anomalies in the city is decreasing as they gather. Actually, I wanted to go home to visit my parents, but it seems I won't be able to return. So let's do what we can one last time." At this moment, Phuong Dic asked, "Do you have any accurate news on your side?" What is this thing? Tan Huynh explained. "The Super Anomaly S uses the entire city as bait. Its blood power is no less than the one that was once sealed in the mental war zone. Natural disasters are often used to describe it. This cocoon is like a harbinger of disaster. It can only give you a warning, just like humans can only know that a disaster is coming, but cannot prevent it. Inside here, a terrifying being is being conceived. Once successful, it will destroy the city. But right now, we have a more scientific explanation. Research shows that even anomalies of the same type will eat and attack each other. The fastest evolution is through engulfing, but the dark anomalies evolve differently perfectly. When facing their kind, there will be an effect similar to suppression, making the other become a servant. We call this perfect evolutionary form an anomaly. King of anomalies, I know you are very strong beyond my comprehension. But after all, you haven't reached the diamond realm. Moreover, even the strongest practitioners, after sealing the natural disaster, have to lie in bed. We need everyone to continue collecting the 7 decays flowers, but we also don't want to lose another talented practitioner. If possible, please leave as soon as possible and break the anomaly's blockade to escape the city. Coordinate with the military district and tell them to abandon this place." Phuong Dic thought back to her 20-some years of schooling. "Did you forget everything because of the recovery of spiritual energy? This is my home. No matter the cost, I won't regret it." Tan Huynh held her head, saying nothing, just smiling gently as his footsteps slowly moved forward. Phuong Dic unleashed a spark, looking up at the anomalies above. He coldly said, using the entire city as a sacrifice to celebrate the birth of the king, "Are your watch and equipment still usable? Let me borrow it for a bit." She was surprised. Phuong Dic explained, "Isn't this capable of detecting anomalies and communicating with the Alliance?" He raised the fire spear. "I have to go up to destroy it first." Phuong Dic aimed at the falling debris in the sky. The monitoring room buzzed with the signal of the practitioner regaining contact. "Captain To, can you hear me?" "No, that's not right. Why is her speed so fast?" "Moreover, flying towards the place of origin has the highest pollution concentration. Quickly tell her to turn back alone. Does she not need to care about her life?" Phuong Dic shouted. Specialist To Tan Huynh received it. "Immediately stop her actions. Avoid casualties and wait for reinforcements. Stay put and wait for orders." At that moment, the static sound from the watch in Phuong Dic's hand rang out. He sighed, finally understanding how to use this thing. "Hello, can you hear me?" You heard a strange voice and shouted, "Who are you? Where's the specialist to Tan Huynh?" Phuong replied, "Listen carefully. I need all of you to cooperate with me. I want to defeat the abnormal king." "What do you mean?" Phuong Dic exclaimed. He repeated, "I'm saying, if you don't want the city to be destroyed and become food for the abnormal, then all communication staff should use every device and information you have right now. Cooperate with me to raid the cocoon and kill it." You fell into deep thought, your teeth clenched in frustration. Phuong Dic shouted, Get everyone to stop what they're doing and connect with him immediately. Use the satellite radar that hasn't been damaged yet. Check for nearby abnormal sources and provide him with all the information. There are 2 of you responsible for the main connection. Guide him to the correct direction. The other 2 run to the control position and prepare to act clearly. Satellite information shows that there are many abnormalities around the cocoon. The closer you get, the denser they become. The number of abnormalities in Tuyedbak is quite low. We can break through on the main road where the abnormalities are densely concentrated. I suggest breaking through the encirclement from the southeast route. It's not good. Some abnormalities have detected you. 2 of the abnormalities are estimated to be AS level with a 2-star power level. Be careful and avoid them. You pondered, but can we really escape? It's too late to retreat now. Suddenly sounds of shock made everyone cover their ears. On the other side, Fuang was constantly dodging and avoiding danger, his eyes blazing with madness. So what happened next? Dung Six shouted. The source of the abnormality disappeared. A knife killed the S-level abnormal with dark attributes. Could he be... The whole room erupted in joy, shouting, "The tyrant is here. We're saved." That's right, the great hermit hiding in the city. I never expected there would be such a powerful practitioner. Fuang narrowed his eyes, assessing the object in front of him. He pondered that after enhancing the fire with the spirit of the road, it could also restrain the abnormality and reduce its regeneration speed. If I had successfully leveled up earlier and increased my strength a bit, perhaps one strike could completely suppress the restructuring ability of these abnormalities. If that's the case, I can only rely on speed and frequency. High frequency to attack and resolve this troublesome situation. In the center of the monsters, something strange appeared. The low-level creatures seemed to hear something and stop moving. They rushed back to their original position, halting their counterattack. Everyone looked on in confusion, wondering what was happening. The creatures had stopped attacking. The president felt uneasy. This isn't good. The flock of creatures suddenly stopped attacking. There can only be one possibility: they were summoned by the abnormal king. Could it be that the abnormal king wants to accelerate the situation? If the flock is blocked outside the city, they must have been summoned. Then we might still have a chance. At that moment, on the side of Jalam, she was continuously attacking. Jalam asked, "How much longer until we can enter the city?" The captain replied, "The equipment estimates the fastest time is half an hour." She hesitated. "Half an hour? Then the abnormal king will have successfully transformed? The city has been destroyed. What can we do to stop it?" He felt helpless. The number of creatures was 10 times greater than the initial estimate, exactly 10 times level S. Even if we relied on lethal weapons, a large-scale attack wouldn't be able to eliminate them completely. Jalam said in frustration, "If we continue like this, the surrounding cities will soon become a sea of dark attributes. Our manpower is still insufficient to break through the encirclement." The captain nodded. "Not enough. I don't know why some practitioners are just standing by, thinking the fire won't reach them." Suddenly she realized something was wrong. Jalam said, "Look over there. What is that?" The creatures in the city were gathering towards the abnormal king. She pondered, "Wait, the blazing light in the sky, could it be him?" Fuang stood beside her, looking confused, and called out to Jalam, who replied with a determined and hopeful attitude. "It's nothing." Jalam ordered everyone to increase firepower. "Don't worry about the rear. That's not an issue. We must enter the city and fight. Don't give up on any city." But at that moment, Fuang was surrounded by flames as he charged forward. Jialam's face froze in disbelief. Tan Huin gasped and slowly exclaimed, "This sea of fire. Oh my god. It's my cousin's sword technique." The mutated creatures with glowing red eyes became even more frenzied. He used his power to charge forward, ready to stop them. Fuang swung a punch down. "That's exactly what I wanted." The gloomy sky of the city was enveloped by the flock of creatures and his light. A terrifying flame pierced through its thick defensive layer. In Fuang's mind, the flame burned steadily. He attacked and suddenly he felt it. In the sparse spiritual energy, he sensed the feeling of about to break through that realm. Fuang smiled faintly, charging forward, increasing his speed while his other hand was creating a dark sphere. It's so massive it seems like it wants to swallow the endless sky, summoning the spirit flower here without a hint of fear. Suddenly, right after his command, red water stains began to appear, and a gigantic flower emerged, drawing in the essence to help me break through as the spirit flower halted, unleashing wild explosive power. It shot out enormous tentacles to attack each branch of the spirit flower, piercing through the body of the anomaly, continuously siphoning the essence from the anomalies. After a while, I gently stepped onto the stamen of the spirit flower. He glanced at the serene sky, sighing, "Has it escaped again?" As I chased into the sky, I realized that this gigantic cocoon, though appearing in the air with a bizarre shape, actually resembled a flower in a mirror, visible but unreachable beneath the water. But I could hear the heartbeat of the king, like the resounding drum beats of a grand and wild battle echoing across the ancient battlefield, a declaration of war that could ignite the most wicked and insane ambitions. If it's already deep inside like that, and still hesitating to show itself, then it might not be fully bloomed yet. He shouted, "Have you found the exact location yet?" The other person replied, "I found it. The king's position is syncing with the device." Immediately, the watch on my wrist turned red and then shot a beam into the sky. He realized it was over there. Right after that, my entire being was enveloped in a diamond-like golden light. As soon as he shouted, the whole space lit up brilliantly, the dazzling light slowly engulfing the monster. Everyone watching was in awe, wondering what kind of power this was. It's a fire attribute, but how can fire be this strong? It can even counter the dark attribute, which is a pure extreme positive attribute, a high-level counterpart to the dark attribute. The number of anomalies is rapidly decreasing, and the diameter of the encirclement is shrinking. The concentration of anomalies began to drop to 100. This is truly unbelievable. The tanks moved, reporting the discovery of the swarm, retreating under some command, all pulling back toward the inner city. Jelam ordered Fung to attack the king's cocoon. The captain added, "It really is him. That tyrant along with the heavenly fire is unbelievable. This surge of power is pure and extreme positive energy. But he has to face the king of anomalies alone," she said. "In the meantime, we should quickly enter the city. He'll hold them off. Wait, look over there. That thing." Suddenly, Jialam's eyes widened in panic as an anomaly appeared in the sky, leaving everyone stunned. Could it be that the king of anomalies is starting to break free early? It's all because of it. It's the source of evil. And those beasts, they've killed our kin. If we just defend, we're surely waiting for death. We have to do something. We must help him. The emergence of creatures from this gigantic cocoon will cost us all our lives, turning the entire city into a bloody mess. Tan Huyen was tirelessly healing the injured, her voice strained. Among the anomalies blocking him, how many were B rank, A rank, or even S rank? It just shows how many of our loved ones and friends they've harmed. Suddenly, YRI changed her attitude as if realizing something. Earlier, he took out that flower. I saw it absorbing power from many places. Isn't it just like the last time we encountered the wild attribute demon? So he can harness the energy of the wild attribute? Then let's pour all our spiritual energy into the net created by those plants so it can absorb our energy. Everyone immediately followed her lead, agreeing in unison. In that moment, the president saw the crowd's actions and was startled. He realized that the practitioners were gathering spiritual energy to attack the anomalies. No, their power isn't strong enough to directly attack the anomalies up there. I understand now. They're supplying spiritual energy to the plants. Fungdek summoned the president, unleashing his power. I have to help him. The others were also influenced by that momentum, including me, and then the energy generated was directed toward a common goal. Then Huyn Healing saw that scene and was momentarily stunned. She realized this was the power coming from all the practitioners in the city. Tan Huyn began to spread her hidden power. Concealed within her body, she projected it outward, focusing her thoughts. Here it comes, King of Anomalies. This is humanity's resistance in the city. The monstrous anomaly fell into its most wicked state as Fungdik gently unleashed an attack, scattering the swarm. He raised his hand to wipe away the wounds, listening to reports through the watch. Carefully, all the swarm of anomalies outside the city are madly closing in on you. 200,000 B-rank anomalies equivalent to the demon level in the 3-star realm. He raised his hand to wipe the wound, listening carefully to the report through his watch. As all the abnormal bats outside the city were frantically closing in on him, 200,000 level B abnormalities comparable to a demon lord in the 3rd realm. The abnormal level A in the creation of the most powerful realm at S is also useless up there. No matter how many subordinates I summon, I will wipe them all out. The abnormal king hasn't even finished evolving and is already rushing out of the cocoon, perhaps out of fear that I would kill him right then and there. From within the abnormal cocoon, a strange hand emerged, and he became extremely serious, raising his spirit. And finally, it broke free from the cocoon. The abnormal king roared fiercely with sharp teeth, resembling a low-level monster but larger and more vicious. The warriors below shouted that the ground was shaking. Could it be that the abnormal king's mere emergence from the cocoon could destroy us? At this moment, Lam was extremely tense, while Huyen, witnessing from another place, was also eagerly anticipating. YY bit her teeth tightly, placing all her trust in success. Huyen spoke up. You are the king of the darkness, the main culprit behind this disaster. I grew up here, and I've always loved this environment. I cherish my current life. The king stood at the forefront of the abnormal beings in a state of rage, opening his mouth wide to look at him, while Huyen's expression was extremely focused, his eyes filled with hatred. The two forces of both sides clashed, and he declared, So you should die. A massive surge of power engulfed the sky in flames. The abnormal king's voice was chilling. Just a tiny first-level creation dares to challenge me. Huyen's body swayed, feeling uneasy. The abnormal king was slowly absorbing all the dark energy around him. Huyen was both resisting and contemplating. Indeed, the abnormal king was different from the others. Normally, after taking a full-force hit from me, they would have been killed instantly. Yet, even when burned to this extent, it could still swallow me whole. This digestive fluid is extremely corrosive, and the concentration of dark attributes within is undeniable. If it were another pioneer, they would have long vanished from this world without a trace. Yet strangely, this level of abnormal evolution is typically only found in high-level spiritual energy. Could it be that it isn't afraid of me attacking it from the inside? The inside of its body is the most dangerous place after all. He unleashed his first technique, thinking to give it a try. Huyen stood on the water surface, holding a fireball, contemplating that although his energy had been significantly weakened by its fluid, he could still injure it. He summoned, as long as it works, everything can be resolved. The spirit flower in Huyen's eyes turned dangerous as he calculated. The abnormal king used this technique against him, causing the spirit flower outside to be absorbed as well. Fortunately, it had absorbed the strange dark attributes. Not only that, but there was also the spiritual power sent by the pioneers in the city. He spoke, "What's wrong? Don't you like its dark attributes?" Huin pondered. This was something he hadn't expected, a spirit flower with wild attributes actually countering the dark attributes of the abnormal king. Originally, he wanted to hollow it out from the inside, saying it was one thing, but he immediately pierced his hand through the monster's body. Everyone below was horrified, looking up at it. Number 81 asked why. "What's going on now?" She replied, "I don't know, cousin. People are starting to evacuate. Everyone retreat in an orderly manner. Don't panic and cause a stampede. We will do our best to ensure everyone's safety." Huin was deep in thought. Huin was fighting inside the body of the abnormal king, while on the ground, vehicles were continuously moving, leaving behind a thick smoke. Lam directed the bats and abnormal beings. There was no time to attack the city. "We must quickly complete the evacuation to minimize casualties." The subordinates understood. She glanced up at the sky. "We have to hurry. We can't defeat them." At this moment, the sky was in chaos. Covered by the darkness of countless bats, the abnormal king was writhing, emitting eerie sounds. Huin's eyes burned with determination as he shielded his body from its slime. Huin held his breath, slowly sinking into the sea of water. He glanced at his shoulder, which was injured and corroded. His eyes were heavy, struggling not to close as he faced the terrifying interior of the abnormal king's body. Bringing a sense of mystery, suddenly a sound zipped past, waking him up. And then Huin found himself standing in a desolate city. He blankly said, "What is this?" Meanwhile, Huin sensed something approaching from behind. A gigantic hand was swinging a punch at him. Huin was trying to summon strength in his hand, but nothing happened. He panicked at this. His spiritual power was about to be struck by the abnormal king's fist. He quickly jumped onto a rock to avoid it. Silently relieved, I dodged it. The energy of his body remained unchanged after training. Yet it still maintained the state after training. This proved that it was the illusion ability of the abnormal king trying to make him feel as if he had returned to his past life, making him think he hadn't awakened yet. He still hadn't become the pioneer, and at that moment, the strange king launched a powerful attack on the translator. He concluded that the strange king was not strong enough to seize all of his power. Its strength was no greater than mine. My abilities hadn't diminished. What I needed to know now was how to overcome this barrier in the illusion. I had to break through, and this breakthrough was the weakness that the strange king had exposed. The monster spoke, "You foolish thing, once you come here, there's no way out for you. Just look." Suddenly the translator smiled faintly, feeling something within. The strange king was transforming half of his face, resembling his own. He opened his gigantic mouth and declared, "It's all over. This is what belongs to you. Accept your fate. Even if you have a bit of power, what can you do? In the end, humans are just food for my evolution." At that moment, the translator bowed his head and smiled, his voice laced with disdain, gradually rising. "Is that so? You really only have this much skill, huh?" The small hands gradually revealed themselves. The translator said, "Looks like you still don't know me. I can protect my family." The person next to him had just been revived, and the strange king was illuminated by a brilliant light roaring as the space began to change dramatically. The dark power gradually faded, and the translator's face transformed, engulfed in flames. He gradually summoned his power outward, working with the system. Then, phenomena began to form around the translator. The status board checked and found that he had met the requirements for a breakthrough. "Do you want to break through to the 2-star spirit realm?" The translator, with his body ablaze, charged at the strange king, emphasizing, "I must thank you for helping me realize that creating the 2-star spirit realm is my rebirth, the turning point to change this world that you would have devoured. And I am the chosen one to take revenge." The demon laughed loudly. "You useless little ants. I thought you had some skills, but you dared to provoke me with just a 2-star spirit realm." Immediately after, it unleashed a wave of dark energy towards the translator. "Demon threatening humanity, you can't escape this place. Obediently become my nourishment." After the thunderous laughter, it suddenly stopped facing him and broke into a faint smile at the corner of its mouth. The demon panicked, shouting, "What is this? My body, my precious body, you despicable human." The translator waved his hand using the technique 9 Dragons Heavenly Fire to exorcise evil. It screamed, "This is absolutely not the power of the 2-star spirit realm." He generated spiritual energy that stunned all of humanity, clearing away all abnormalities. The shadow of the demon quickly became blurry, and then darkness enveloped the city, disappearing in an instant, revealing a cosmic black hole. Then it descended right in the middle of his chest. The translator's face was incredibly calm after the incident. He waved his hand using the ability of Infinite Shadow Realm and thought to himself, "Finally, everything is over." Everyone sighed, "It's over, it's over. The city has been preserved. We weren't annihilated. We survived to the second day. The matter has been resolved right. We have been saved." Jialam happily said, "It's bright now." The captain curiously asked, "Aren't you going to look for them?" She replied, "No need. We still have our own matters to attend to. But if we want to return these people's lives to normal, to restore this city to its former state." Everyone in the monitoring room was overly excited. "Great. We did it. We really did it. We also contributed to stopping the strange king. It feels like a dream." Yes, luckily he appeared and actually defeated the king. If it weren't for him, we would have to bear the blame for the city falling into enemy hands. Even dying would be hard to escape responsibility. Tan Huynh wondered, they're still alive, right? The president patted her shoulder reassuringly. Don't worry, our medical center hasn't been destroyed by the strange beasts. She nodded. I understand. Without the translator, they wouldn't have had a chance to be treated. Sometimes I want to sigh, who exactly is he? Why does he have such powerful abilities, always able to turn the world upside down and accomplish things others can't even imagine? Yeah, I agree. After this battle, the headquarters will surely have some movements. Tan Huynh commented on the phenomenon in the sky just now. It shows that he has leveled up to the 2-star spirit realm. At this level, someone will contact him before us. But when we first started monitoring him, I thought I had a bit of competition with him. But now I've been left far behind. Moreover, with my understanding of him, his spiritual attributes and talents are at their peak. I fear his strength surpasses this level. Not to mention here, even the entire lower nation. He is also the top genius. The president agreed. The light shines up to the top of the clouds, sealing the dragon of fire, cutting down all abnormalities. This is a scene that everyone has seen. It must have caused quite a discussion. In the future, the wave of discussion will only grow larger, not just among the pioneers, but even among ordinary people. We need to act quickly. She gasped and asked, what? He replied, the false burial master. That's not a bad name. Below ground number 81 was running wild, calling out, Yee, slow down, wait for me. Yee was worried. Where's my cousin? She advised. Don't rush. Let's just go home and wait. Suddenly a sound caught her attention, making her turn quickly. Then Yi joyfully called out, her eyes glistening, Cousin. The translator looked confused when he heard her voice and glanced over. He asked, why are you all intentionally going outside to look for me? Yi was concerned. How are you doing now? Can your body still hold up? She shouted, I knew it, you need us now. Yi supported the translator, hearing him say he was fine. You did great. Inside, he thought it had been a long time since the king of abnormalities had been hurt so badly. The decisive blow, along with the seal, had nearly exhausted all my spiritual energy. After breaking through to the second realm of spirit creation, it now made the two kids worry. At that moment, Yi noticed something unusual about the translator. She curiously said, wait, cousin, are you breaking the scene again? The speed of the second realm of spirit creation is terrifying. Just how talented are you? What the big brother broke through again. Their information became buzzing. The man who saved the city, the false burial master, a super-level mysterious expert, cut down the king of abnormalities. Who on earth is this divine being? Just what level has the one who exterminated the king of abnormalities reached? That's so cool. At that moment, I thought we were done for. The experts from the Spirit Alliance and the military were at a loss, but he single-handedly defeated that genius false burial master. Who exactly is he? No way. Official resources support someone to reach this level. Is there some mysterious force behind that I can't guess? It feels very similar to some of the hidden trump cards of our great Xia. Huang Six, look at the screen. I'm not mistaken. It's him. The one who defeated the king of abnormalities that caused the city to be devastated, Huang Six lost to such a master. It's also a stroke of luck in life. Someone called out, Kwang, where are you going? I want to go, he replied. I want to take him as my master. The person hesitated. I think many people will want to find him. The peaceful scenery of the great Xia city was beautiful. A meeting is taking place here. A voice rang out. What is everyone watching? At first, I wanted to see the military and the Spirit Alliance self-destructing. It was really unsatisfactory. Someone suggested find a good gun to meet him. One person opposed, that won't do. This is called the Son of Heaven the Savior. How can a gun be worthy? She placed her hand on the image of the translator, emphasizing the false burial master. Then, using her long-arm device, she tore apart the photo of that woman, reassuring, don't rush. Those who block our way, no matter their realm, won't be spared. They will all be confidently destroyed by the dark forces at this moment while he sits at home. Outside, a voice called out, hello, may I ask if the translator is home? The translator stood up and walked closer to the door, seeing two figures, the president bringing a pile of gifts. He began, in the recent incident of the Level S abnormality invasion, we made a huge oversight. Thanks to you, we avoided serious consequences. We cannot salvage this. On behalf of the Spirit Alliance, I express our deep gratitude to you. He smiled and replied, it's nothing. Come in. Once inside, the translator gently poured them water. He glanced around thinking, so this is what a great person's home looks like. How does the military operate? The Spirit Alliance should find a better place for him to stay. The president began. Actually, the Spirit Alliance sent us here for another matter. We want to seek your approval to announce the title of False Burial Master. He curiously said, let's hear it. He started to explain the current situation. In every city across the Lower Kingdom, there are some powerful practitioners. Their reputations are far-reaching, and they are quite well known in the practitioner community. The Level S abnormality, this time, is the most terrifying disaster. We want to announce the title of False Burial Master to make Taiti a key strategic city. After the spiritual energy recovers from this Level S disaster, we are sure our city will need a leader. The famous and valiant celestial practitioner, the captain of the Four Huin, predicts that in the future, extraordinary phenomena will become increasingly frequent and unusual incidents will multiply. We cannot fall into such a predicament. I almost got left behind in the city again, she nodded and said, that's right. But in reality, it's all the same. Without you, everyone in the city would die. It's just a different kind of death. I understand Yihi. It seems I still don't know enough about the brutal changes in this world after the spiritual energy recovery. He reassured Yi, we don't need to be so pessimistic. Focusing solely on cultivation has made me neglect the city's development. Before the spiritual energy recovery, the city I was in, Tai City, was one of the key cities in the lower country. However, in terms of strategic depth and development, it hasn't reached the top 3 among over 100 cities. The top 3 are Shent City, Tian City, and Shang City. Additionally, there are Hai City, Yuan City, and Xuan City. So this crisis is actually an opportunity for Tai City. The president reported that cities are now starting to compile statistics on the number and strength of the practitioners. The stronger the practitioner in a region, the higher the city's evaluation level. The resources obtained will increase, and more wild practitioners are beginning to prepare to join the city's spiritual alliances. Everyone, whether practitioners or ordinary people, needs a solid support. A glimmer of hope can shine a light on the path of evolution, but our spiritual alliance will keep the identity of our leader private mainly to highlight the mystery of what is real and what is not, so they can speculate and imagine. He crossed his arms and responded enigmatically, that's right. The excitement of many girls was palpable. Sometimes human imagination can be more threatening than reality. Many agreed with him. I have no objections. This benefits me and those around me. If so, I hope we can cooperate happily. The translator gently extended a hand in front of them, and both sides quickly shook hands to finalize the deal. The president happily looked at him as they cooperated smoothly. Following the close collaboration between the Spiritual Alliance and the Tai City military, normal operations resumed at an unbelievable speed. Helping the injured was also carried out in order. This disaster accelerated the maintenance of order everywhere, and the world began to get back on track. At the headquarters of the Spiritual Alliance in Shent City, voices echoed. This is the practitioner who handled the S-level anomaly in Tai City, right among the newly submitted practitioners. He is the most outstanding, possessing a high-level yang attribute, which is the opposite of the dark attribute, truly a child of heaven. Moreover, according to the documents from Tai City, he holds not just one high-level attribute. The Heavenly Fireblade had previously spread across the internet a high-level fire attribute, and the Tyrant, with a high-level lightning attribute, was named by the military district. That's him. Another person complained, and there's something even more miraculous. At that moment, a woman approached and asked, "Are you discussing the practitioner? Excuse me, may I see the information?" The staff immediately agreed and made way. "Oh, it's you." She spoke up. More and more practitioners are revealing outstanding talents like this. There must still be many who haven't. Seeing his abilities firsthand, I feel impressed. Even I want to witness his demeanor. The practitioner will probably meet us soon. In another scene at Shang City, in a library, H.N.H. Lee was sitting in front of a screen. The boys around couldn't help but look up as someone approached and awkwardly asked, "Excuse me, can I—" "No, this is a library. You've disturbed others." The boy rejected turned to leave, sighing in frustration. What an idiot, he thought, annoyed. He hasn't even noticed the changes in the world after being in Shang City for a few days. He never expected so much had happened. After the exam, he had gained spiritual power and become a practitioner at the Ghost Realm level 1 star. It's rare for someone to become a practitioner, and I just happened to be one of the chosen ones. Perhaps this is why I can avoid disaster in Tai City. What can ordinary people do against anomalies? Especially for the ordinary ones, what can they do? She unconsciously recalled what Gelam said. It turns out he was just a classmate. Quin Hai frowned, thinking about his former self. He must have been drained of blood by those monsters long ago. How could I mistake that genius for that useless man? This practitioner is 1,000 times better than him. Only a brave and stylish practitioner like this could match me. The paper in his hand contained information about selling a house. Yi excitedly said, "Today, we need to rest and prepare for a house viewing." "But cousin, is it okay if we don't train today?" "But hey, cousin, is it okay if we don't train today?" Fungdik replied, "It's rare to have a day off to balance work and rest." Lin's suggestion is indeed very reasonable, but aside from the level of cultivation, we still need to spend time improving our quality of life. This Miss Tio is the captain of the Tobao Tenhuin. The living conditions of the two of you really need improvement. We'll set a date to go house hunting with you two brothers. I'm so excited. But I didn't expect Captain To to have such resources. This high-end house is something I never dared to dream of. Captain To is generous enough to give away 2 houses. He spoke indifferently, saying, "What's the big deal? This is the era of recovering spiritual energy. Those people all know the value of a powerful celestial practitioner. Houses and such can't compare." She rebutted, "But this is still a shocking change. I thought I could earn a bit of money and resources. Cultivating to rely on is enough." Suddenly a foul smell rushed into YY's nose. She asked, "Do you smell something rotten?" Fungdik replied, "It's like a sewer smell." "That's not right. I've been in Tai Thi for so long. I've never smelt this before." She suggested, "Could it be that a careless worker damaged the pipes?" He rebutted, "No, someone is following us." Suddenly both of them turned to face the same direction where an aggressive man was approaching. "You're the celestial practitioner, right? You've entered my territory and I can see you're just a trashy wannabe. A weakling with no talent, and Tai Thi is useless for even recommending someone like you as captain. We need to teach you a lesson. Bring him out here. Show some respect to us immediately." YY launched an attack, but the thug dodged it. A blade was raised high into the sky, looking extremely fierce, and then that thug slashed down, forcing her to quickly create a shield for defense. YY shouted, "This isn't good. Be careful. They also have a spiritual realm." Meanwhile, Fungdit remained calm, grabbing the thug's hand with fiery force. His eyes blazed with anger as he cursed the thugs for daring to rob him right on the street. Fungdik was standing alone against the thugs. The troublemakers were in shock, exclaiming, "No way! This weakling has clearly been hit by my penetrating universal medicine, which should have paralyzed him completely." Facing him was Fungdik wearing sunglasses and remaining calm. The penetrating universal medicine, which had been altered by a celestial practitioner with wood attributes into a paralyzing property, spilled out. The leader shouted, "I was careless just now. We're all in the spiritual realm, so why should we fear you? This time you won't escape," he sneered. "A mutated earth attribute and a mutated wood attribute, huh?" In his heart, Fungdit kept criticizing such a bizarre technique, which really suited the style of the underhanded. Their unorthodox methods might work against ordinary practitioners, but against someone like me, they're completely useless. Just then, a thug on a rope was about to attack YY. But before he could act, she countered with a punch. Fungdit calmly spoke. "I don't want to make a big deal out of this. It's just a disturbance in my daily life." Then he took off his glasses, showing a very annoyed attitude. Fungdik was furious, creating an overwhelming aura as he ordered YY to step back. Seeing the spiritual energy he radiated, everyone was stunned. After the explosion, only screams remained. They screamed, "This is terrifying. What kind of fire is this? Is this really the celestial practitioner? It's killing me. Stop." At that moment, Tan Huynh rushed over shouting, "You're not dead yet, are you? Leave one alive." Luckily, these people are the targets that the Spiritual Energy Association is monitoring. He curiously asked, "Are you planning to take them back for processing?" She nodded, saying, "The Spiritual Energy Association has begun registering all celestial practitioners for special management, especially these people." Fungdik refused, "I don't like being disturbed by others. Next time, if you dare to provoke me again, it won't be this simple." She rebutted, "Consider this a warning. If it were 2 days ago, the Spiritual Energy Association wouldn't intervene in the internal conflicts among celestial practitioners. Killing you is well deserved. The celestial practitioner spared you out of respect for the Spiritual Energy Association, and this lesson isn't enough. In the future, you'll have to bear the consequences. You all know this in your hearts. What kind of fools are you? How dare any of you provoke someone recognized by the Spiritual Energy Association?" Captain 2, I want to ask a little about what punishment they will have to face. Tang Huynh replied that these people already have a criminal record, and even if they create a spiritual realm, they will still face life imprisonment. Don't dream of freedom and rights anymore. They will have to stay in prison and continue to contribute the remaining value of a celestial practitioner. A translator realizes that this method is truly effective. Huynh remarks that the person standing in front of him is indeed the treasure of the Spirit Association, the future of the lower nation. No matter how crazily we push the ballots for the fake burial, there will always be a bunch of brainless idiots with weak spiritual power who still think they're strong and rush in head first. Is our propaganda still too subtle? Anyway, attracting these powerful practitioners and pooling resources for their growth is something the Spirit Association must do. We absolutely cannot let a few clueless individuals ruin that, and ruin the good relationship we've painstakingly built with the translator. She smiled brightly and said, "Let's go. I'll take you two to choose a new villa with a new car." I kept telling myself that this time I must scare the monkeys by killing the chicken. Later, Huynh introduced, "These are the 2 apartments that the Spirit Association has selected for you. This is the penthouse on the highest floor in the city center. With the best view and full amenities, it's mainly very convenient for living. This one is a 3-story villa with high privacy, nestled by the mountains and close to the river, making it extremely suitable for cultivation. Both apartments have been furnished with the highest quality interiors. You two don't need to spend any extra on renovations. Just grab your suitcases and move in right away." YY commented that both apartments are not bad. The translator raised 2 fingers in agreement. "Then let's take both." She was startled. "Is that okay?" He assured her, "Of course. I trust the sincerity of the team leader." To smiled and replied, "No problem. I'll report it up top. Don't worry, it'll be quick." "So what about the cars? The Spirit Association has partnered with a luxury dealership here. You can choose any car you want from here." At that moment, people outside were chatting. "Look at that girl. Her skin is so fair, she has a real presence. That guy isn't just anyone. He's wearing casual clothes, but still can't hide his aura. I could tell right away. I wonder which rich family he's from. He must be here to buy a car for his girlfriend, right?" Meanwhile, a girl passing by noticed and adjusted her glasses to see clearly. She thought, "Isn't that the ex-boyfriend of Queen Lee, the one the principal personally welcomed into the military? What a coincidence to run into your roommate's ex-boyfriend while out for a stroll. Moreover, he's buying a car for another girl." At that moment, the phone on Queen Lee's desk rang. The message read, "Queen Lee, do you know who I just saw? Your ex-boyfriend. He's at the luxury 4S dealership. Only VIPs can end up buying a car. The cars here start at over $1 million, and he's buying one for a very beautiful and classy girl." She typed a reply, feeling indifferent. So what? Queen Lee wondered where he got the money to buy a car. This time, the disaster is so great that not only can he not die, but he's also lucky enough to be supported by someone else. It's a pity that the distance between us is not something he can easily overcome. It was like that before, and it's still like that now. The future will be even more so. By the time I reach the peak of being a practitioner, these trivial matters will mean nothing. At the new villa YY, excitedly exclaimed, "Brother, we really have a villa now." In contrast to the translator's indifferent attitude, she wiped away her drool and said, "There's another one in the city center that we can switch to." She hurriedly ran upstairs to check it out. He looked at her figure helplessly. This child now truly looks like a child. She no longer pretends to be an adult. From my past life, until before my rebirth, I had never met her. She must also be a practitioner, trusted by everyone, but this time I won't let this child bear the responsibility and die again. Suddenly the phone rang. It was Jialam. "What does she want from me?" He answered. "Hello, what's up?" She started by congratulating him on his promotion. "Team leader Funko, I heard that the Spirit Association gifted you 2 apartments. Their demeanor is still the same as always." The translator sat down, crossed his legs, and replied calmly, "Actually, I think this habit isn't bad. It can continue." Jalam informed him, "You don't need to say anything to spare them. I know a powerful practitioner like you wouldn't care about such money-laden things, but right now, to improve living conditions, there's really no better compensation than this. In a while, the spiritual fruits from the recovery of spiritual energy will be completed. At that time, I will send you a portion to taste. In my heart, the gap between ordinary people and practitioners reflects their differences in vision, while top practitioners like the translator. Compared to ordinary pioneers, there's a much bigger difference. Even the strategic resources in the spiritual zone might mean nothing to him." Old Lamb started, "I have an internal mission here. I hope you can come. I don't know if you're interested." Yes, he understood. This is her true purpose, right? Let's hear it. She asked if he knew about the Heavenly Treasure building in the market. Fong translated in surprise. "Isn't the Heavenly Treasure the largest shopping center in the market? It was recently closed, causing a lot of complaints from the people." "Yes," Old Lamb recounted, "because of unusual intrusions. There have been quite a few casualties there. Now it has truly turned into a haunted house, an iconic architectural building of the market. The most frequented building, even considered the face of the market. However, recently, due to strange occurrences, many supernatural events have happened in the market, so they had no choice but to seal it off." Fong stepped forward and waved to greet everyone. "I've received a mission from the spiritual zone and have come here." In his heart, Old Lamb advised not to reveal their identities for now. He didn't know the reason behind it. For now, let's keep it that way. The spiritual energy couldn't probe into the specific. Everything was concealed. The 2 people over here, judging by their clothes, must be sent by the military district. Meanwhile, one person spoke up. "Oh, it's you. Nice to meet you." Another added, "Hello." He silently assessed these 2, giving off a very familiar vibe. To Than Huyn must be from the Spiritual Alliance in the market. The girls mentioned that Old Lamb has already informed us. "We are from the Spiritual Alliance in the market and will be acting together with you." Later, the car sped down the road. The driver spoke up. "This time we have to become accomplices temporarily. Although I still don't know your strengths, the atmosphere is quite calm." Everyone ignored a girl who responded to break the awkwardness. "I think we should agree on one thing. Once we enter, we need to help each other, right?" Fong leaned against the window, pondering. It seems this mission is quite complicated. Indeed, they mobilized people from all over. The market is also a famous city, and the members of the Spiritual Alliance seem to be a mixed bag. At that moment, Jia Kiet in the team glanced at him with an evaluative look and whispered, "Didn't Sister Lam say to invite a great Buddha to us? Is that him?" Than Huang replied, "I can't be sure. He looks a bit thin, like a student." Fong sat quietly listening to them discussing, concluding that he didn't have the government's bracelet. His aura was discreet and his specific strength couldn't be probed. Than Huang pondered, could he be a Fengtang master single-handedly eliminating disasters to protect Thai market from destruction? But is a Fengtang master someone this young? Even if he possesses 3 rare high-level attributes or can eliminate disasters, it would take the strength of a star-level spirit to seal the anomalies. At the same time, breaking through the realm right there truly sparked his interest. Elsewhere, at the military district office in the spiritual zone, Old Lamb answered the phone. "Hello, spiritual zone." The voice on the other end sounded panicked. "The Heavenly Treasure building has been completely sealed off. Our people who entered have lost contact. Currently, the anomaly concentration in the sky has reached 12,000 and the known casualties are 53. Please pay attention." She pondered. The development trend is accelerating. Old Lamb ordered, "You guys can rest assured, I won't take this lightly. The people sent this time will be fine. I assure you who assigned this mission to us." "Then don't ask too much. This is the rule of the spiritual zone. The Heavenly Treasure building is currently experiencing storms." His group just arrived and they got out of the car. Fong analyzed the situation is quite serious. The guy inside is no less formidable than the one we encountered before. Tan Huang reminded, "Look over there at the door. What is that?" "If I'm not mistaken, it's likely blood. As far as I know, the Heavenly Treasure building is quite cramped. The entire building has 40 floors, the tallest architecture in the market, with over 2,000 staff and customers evacuated. But before sealing it off, some people didn't cooperate, resulting in many still being inside. Previously, the market sent a rescue team, but they went in and never came back." Miha understood. "So the figure of over 50 casualties is just a temporary estimate. After all, no one knows the situation inside." Fong inquired, "Is there anyone inside who can still communicate?" Another replied, Probably not, since the anomaly occurred that people inside haven't sent any news. On the second day after the building was sealed, I was outside helping with work. Someone said that the entire building felt like a dead building. It used to be brand new, but now looks old and abandoned like it had been for 15 years. Through the windows, I couldn't see any shadows of people. The fog was thick, enveloping us. We planned to use the window as a breakthrough point, and then I saw pieces of flesh being gnawed away by the anomaly falling from the window. After that, the anomaly's aura in the building grew increasingly severe. It hasn't even been a week, and things have already come to this. He was curious about how you guys couldn't contact the inside, so the casualty figures you have are just guesses, based on the remains or fragments that fell. The spirit of the trade is working way too carelessly. That person was unexpectedly UC, but we were out of options. The translator thought that even though the information field was handled quite sloppily by the spirit of the trade, there seemed to be no other way. The number of casualties is definitely not just this. For ordinary people, it's no different from an attack that compresses space in a closed environment like a lamb waiting to be slaughtered no matter how much they run. They can't escape the killer's grasp. He demanded that we not delay any longer and that we immediately enter the building. Some abnormalities rely on the chung button to complete the evolution. The larger the number of casualties, the more complicated it is inside. Bajiakiet was trying to hold back. But even though the military said to listen to the commander, you still need to discuss the strategy first. The translator turned cold and said there's no strategy arranged yet. We need to see the situation inside first and then figure it out. Moreover, you haven't joined the government yet. He added that everyone present here has experience. Handling various abnormalities, as the commander, you should at least understand each person's abilities. Look, I told you without government training, there's a lack of experience in this area. Just then, Thanhung shouted, all right, right now time is of the essence. Stop talking so much. He's been recommended by the Elder Lamb to help, so he took on this mission. What's the Elder Lamb's level of expertise? Haven't you guys heard of him before? Hey, he ordered that, before starting the mission, the biggest taboo is internal conflict. If you don't want to go in, then don't follow. Jiekia tried to hold back. Inside the scene was extremely chaotic, with a marked vehicle in the center. Miha wondered why there wasn't a sound in here. At that moment, a stream of dark energy was slowly creeping toward him. As if sensing it, he looked up to see a monster appear, causing Jiekia to panic and shout. At the same time, the translator's eyes lit up with fire. He threw a punch infused with fire attributes, and in a flash, the translator devastated the space. His face was cold, carrying a terrifying killing intent, and the monster was quickly sliced into pieces. The flames from the translator spread out, burning its body. Jiekiad couldn't believe what was happening before his eyes and exclaimed. Miha was also shocked, adding, is that it? It's over. Tenhung asked in a horror, where did you get that sword from? At that moment, the translator bent down to pick up a fragment. He held it up and concluded that this was a hybrid of a bird and a gecko. And with this level of mutation, it seems it has devoured quite a few people. His face turned pale, his mouth clenched tightly as he shouted, this is... Tanha recognized that object as a common A+ grade item.